Hey guys, how are you? I pray that you have had an amazing week. As you see, I'm trying to get myself together. I'm excited about coming out and speaking with you guys. You guys know I've had a pretty eventful week, um, or a pretty eventful last week. And so this week I call myself on vacation. Well, I'm trying to be on vacation or what have you. I'm starting to learn what I need to do to be on vacation, which is one of the reasons I decided to take 2 weeks off for vacation, because I knew that the first week was going to be more so a learning experience. So I can truly say that this week I have come to understand that in order for me to take a vacation, I really just have to shut everything down around me. That way I can hear nothing but the voice of God. But that's neither here nor there. How are you guys doing? Let me know that you are in the room. Make sure you hit the like button, the love button, the subscribe button, the share button. Hit all those buttons for me. And we're going to have a really interesting talk about sex on today. I believe that this is going to be revelatory. I believe that this is going to be edifying. I believe that this is going to be informative. I believe that this is going to help to deliver some of you or what have you. It's going to help you if you are dealing with an inability to remain abstinent. I believe that this particular lesson will help you out. And I also believe that this will likely be a part one. I believe that this will be a part one because I had to just kind of shut off the faucet as it relates to revelation regarding sex. So this will likely be a part one. Do me a favor again, be sure to like, be sure to share. I believe that this is going to help somebody. And so what we're going to talk about is what you don't know about sex, what you do not necessarily know about sex. A lot of people think that sex is one thing when it's another. I'm letting everybody come in, give you a little bit of small talk. As everybody comes in, you guys know that I just launched my brand new film, Broken Idols, over the weekend. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. It turned out to be a complete success. I know y'all thought I was going to say flop or fail. You know, it was really good. Yeah, and I'm just giving small talk as you guys are coming in. But I learned a lot this weekend. I can honestly say that my life was changed this weekend because my mind was changed. I started getting revelation about so many things. The day of the event, I went into that war that I knew I was going to go into. The day of, the event started. The premiere was at 7 o'clock that night. And that the day of, I just remember being excited, grateful, numb, a lot of different things. But then I remember frustration trying to come in. Let me give you a little bit of revelation that I learned. I'll just tell you one of the events I was frustrated about. So this is just kind of, and this is no shade to anybody who did this or what have you, but just a lesson on etiquette. My phone was blazing and going off with people saying, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to come." And right then and there, that thing was pricking at my spirit. Man, it was pricking at my spirit because it almost felt like nobody was going to be there. It almost felt, because you're not having the people that are coming. The people that are coming are not texting you. They're not saying, "Hey, I'm going to be there." Instead, it's the people that are not coming. And my phone was just doo 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 doo. We had our lead meeting earlier that day at church, and in lead, I started getting text messages. I got like 2 or 3 in text. So the a large part of my day was filled with people sending those text messages and stuff like that. And I was like, man, am I gonna have it's gonna the theater or that the youth center, the youth sanctuary in our church holds 300 people. One lady that told me it holds 300 people. And I started thinking, I remember her telling me that, half of the people that register are not going to show. That's just how it is. People register just to show their support, but toward the last minute, you're going to get a lot of excuses. You're going to get a lot of this and that, or what have you. Man, was that thing for real? So long story short, I had all these coming in, and I'm thinking to myself, man, it's going to be like 40 people there. It'll be like 50 people there. So we're going to have a 300 seater with just maybe the first 2 rows that are filled. And of course, people don't like to fill the rows. They're going to just kind of. So in my head, I was a little bit stressed. I was fighting down the stress or what have you. And I was like, I got to do a lesson on etiquette. So I will say this. If you ever find yourself in a predicament where you're not going to come to an event, just wait till after the event and just send a text saying, "Hey, I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend," unless you have a role in the event. If you got a role, tell people beforehand. Tell people weeks beforehand or what have you. But I learned that the day of, typically you get bombarded. Like your whole day is nothing but text messages, or what have you. And I was like frustrated. But long story short, it actually turned out to be good. I'm just giving small talk or what have you, but it actually turned out to be really good. When we got to the church, 22 of my students came into town. They rented a house, y'all. They ended up renting two houses. 22 was in one house and 3 was in another, because I already had 3 that were already in town. But it was 22 in one house and 3 in the other, and it was successful. 22 women. Every time we come together, and this is small talk, every time we come together, miracles happen. Every time we come together, miracles happen. Somebody, so last time we went on the cruise ship, a guy got delivered in a gay bar, right? This time a guy got saved or what have you. So it's been amazing. One of my students said, I see this is now a thing. I was like, it is absolutely a thing now. That, whenever we come together, miracle signs and wonders are going to take place. But they came down. God reminded me of that. So I had to fight to hold on to my gratitude. Long story short, even though I was gracious, it was just, like I said, your phone is going off. You got so much stuff going on. But when we got to the event 30 minutes early, people were already there. So I could tell. I was like, oh, this is going to be a full house. I could tell then this is going to be a full house. So with that being said, turned out it was 300 seats up in there. And I think it was anywhere between 230 to 250 people that came. And it could have been more than that, but I was looking at some of the videos or what have you. But I remember looking out and it's packed. Everything's done an excellent. Shout out to the ladies that helped me out. Sister Destiny and Sister Destiny. I don't necessarily want to say their last names, but Sister Destiny and Sister Jasmine and everybody that helped me out. So many people that came together, people that I really didn't necessarily know that well. We got closer during that time because those are the people that showed up. Those are the people that came and said, hey, can I put my hands to the plow? What can I help you with? Or what have you. So that's another story for another time. Let's get into this lesson. I'm saying this to say that the weekend was a success. It was amazing. I was so taken aback that I couldn't even feel anything. That's how, whenever I get overwhelmed, I just can't feel anything. But what's that, the overwhelm? But long story short, it was a complete success. We got lots of pictures. We had a lot of fun. And I want to say thank you to those of you who came out. Some people from my YouTube audience, plenty of people from my YouTube audience came out. It was such a blessing to see all of the faces. We all did black tie and what have you. So that's that. Anywho, remember, this is a 7-minute mark, 7:42. This is when I start talking about the lesson, but I just wanted to get that out. I want to say thank you guys for helping to make it a success. Everybody's raving about the film. It was good. The actors were there. We spent the weekend hanging out. We had a party at my shop on Friday. On Saturday, we had the premiere. On Sunday, we went out to eat. It was a complete success. It was fun. We laughed a lot, everything. So that's that. I'm looking forward to doing it again or what have you. So anywho, just a little bit of small talk. I was like, me and my students, we need to talk about, I need to look at buying a house here. I need to look at buying a house just for whenever they come into town, calling it the visionary house. But anywho, let's go ahead and get on this. Let me know that you are in the room. Let me know that you are ready by just saying ready. We're going to get into this lesson. I got so much that I want to give to you. And because I have a lot I want to give to you, I'm going to give it to you what I've written down. But like I said, I'm going to likely have to do a part 2. All the same, just so you know, I am on vacation this week. The only reason that I'm coming out doing this particular lesson was because I was supposed to come out and do a lesson on Sunday. Sunday, I was just incredibly tired. I didn't do a lesson. Not just I was tired, I was hanging out with the actors, my students, and all that. Mainly my students. We had church, and then after church, we went out to eat. We were there till like 6, 7 o'clock, and that was that. So anywho, back to this. Let's get into the lesson. Now, one of the things that I want to go ahead, I want to start off with drawing. I want to start off with drawing. I don't know why I didn't already do this. Yeah, I'm looking for this right here. I want to start off really simple drawing because I want you to be able to look at this and get an understanding of where we are going. And by the time we are done with this, you will have an understanding about sex. This lesson is going to change your life. I hope you're ready to see your life change. Give me a second. All righty. Okay, here we go. Give me one moment. Just let me know you're ready. Now, you know that we are tripart beings. We are tripart beings, which means that I'll say like my apostle says it, we live in a body. We are spirits that live in a body, and we have a soul. You know, one of the biggest mistakes, one of the greatest tricks of the enemy is to make you think that you are your body, to make you identify yourself as your body, right? This is what happens when it comes to like homosexual movement or what have you. A lot of times people get caught up thinking that they are their bodies, not realizing you are a spirit. Your body will not follow you, right? So your spirit is gonna come outside of your body. So you never obey your body. You never allow your body to lead you. So this is what I wanted to draw out. This is 30-fold. You live in a body, you have a soul, you are a spirit. All right. You live in a body, you have a soul, you are a spirit. It's 30-fold, 60-fold, and 100-fold. The body, you see, I have sex here. The soul, you see, I have intimacy here. And the spirit, why did I write spirit? I was supposed to write worship. Moving too fast. The spirit. So now, I want you to write down 1, 2, 3, sex, intimacy, worship. These are levels. Sex, intimacy, worship. Now, number 1, a man has sex with a woman, or a woman has sex with a man. Note, a human can have sex, also known as intercourse, with anything. If you decided that you want to get up and have sex with a lampshade, you can do it. If you want to go and dig a hole in the ground and have sex with the ground, you can do it. You can climb up a tree, find a nice hole in the tree, and penetrate that hole and bruise yourself up all over the place. You can have sex with yourself. You can have sex with the mailbox. You can have sex with pretty much anything. But for the most part, the body is what you use for sex, right? So a man has sex with a woman. And again, note, a human can have sex, also known as intercourse, with anything. Number 2, a husband is supposed to be intimate with his wife and vice versa. This is important. This is important. A husband is supposed to be intimate with his wife and vice versa. So when you start thinking about fornication, right now you have a lot of looseness in the earth. A lot of people running around here, they don't necessarily understand what they're doing. This is why Jesus said when they crucified him, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Meaning they have no knowledge. They have very little to no knowledge. They have very little to no understanding. People out here, they're being loose with their body because they don't understand what's happening. They don't understand how detrimental it is. They don't understand what it does spiritually speaking, what it does to their souls, and they don't understand what it does to their bodies. The Bible tells us that fornication is a sin against your own body. They don't necessarily understand that. God says, the way of the foolish is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. So they can be dealing with issues in their bodies. They can be dealing with different manners of diseases, disorders, and stuff like that. And they have no idea why that stuff is happening. But if you're spiritual, you get an understanding is because of the stuff that they're doing with their body. So a husband is supposed to be intimate with his wife and vice versa. Now, the world will get involved in sex, not necessarily intimacy. As a matter of fact, the dating market is about sex. So the dating market is about putting on a mask, showing up at a restaurant, sitting there, and a person telling you about them, what they want you to know, telling you things about themselves that they think that you will be attracted to, all the while hiding those chaotic versions of themselves, hiding their issues, hiding their mommy issues, hiding their daddy issues, hiding their insecurities, hiding all of those things. Is all about a facade. But then you turn around in this, you know, the person is being pretentious, you're being pretentious, you turn around in this, and then this is the world's way of dating. Then you start getting physically involved with somebody you really truly don't know. That's what makes it sex or intercourse, because at the end of the day, there is no intimacy. There were times in the Bible, or typically whenever people would lay together in the Bible, they would say, and he knew her, right? Or they, you know, he knew her, what have you. And that denotes intimacy. It denotes intimacy. But a husband is supposed to be intimate with his wife and vice versa, meaning there has to be a measure of knowledge. There has to be a measure of, okay, I've gotten to know her and I can dwell with her as according to knowledge. There, I understand her body, I understand her mind, I understand what she doesn't like. But if you are going around and you're having sex with some dude that you met, right? Maybe you met him on Hinge, maybe you met him on Tinder, maybe you met him on what's these other dating apps. Maybe was it Blackfish, Bluefish? I don't know what kind of fish it is, but maybe you met him on one of those sites, right? And now was that Plenty of Fish? Oh, good God, isn't that nasty site? But maybe you met him on one of those sites, right? And you're getting in there, you don't know that this is a serial killer. You don't know that this man is perverted. You don't know that the man is interested in children. You don't know much of anything about him. All you know is that he's good looking, he's charming, but there is no real surface knowledge. So this is again what degrades it to being nothing but sex. Now, a husband is going to have sex with his wife, but there's going to be a lot of intimacy because he knows her, and she knows him. There are couples that don't know each other. I'm going to talk about it. There are couples, there are people who are married, there are people who have been married for years and they don't necessarily know each other. I was married and he actually didn't know me. And the reason he didn't know me was because I was young and naive. I introduced him to the parts of me that he liked. My friends got a chance to see every other part of me, right? And you'll see this most of the time with women. Women have a tendency to introduce, we're all multifaceted. Women have a tendency to introduce the sides of them that the man is only interested in, the sides of themselves that the man celebrates, the sides of themselves that the man gifts and he rewards and he compliments. That is the side of themselves that women have a tendency to show men. There are sides of ourselves that are relatively sensitive. And, we may turn around and show it to a guy and he ignores that side of us, or he says something condescending, or he says something that, is relatively offensive. It hurts our feelings. And so we'll never show him this side again. And to my brothers in Christ, hear me when I tell you this. Women can actually hide a side of themselves from you for the rest of your life. They can be married to you for 47 years, and there will be a side of them that you never see. See, God hides a wife. Even when you're married to her, God still hides her. So there are sides of her that you may never see. And the way that you get access to those sides is through intimacy. It's opening up, covering her, and understanding her, living with her as according to knowledge, giving her space to talk, giving her the room to try to understand things, taking the time out to be her leader, taking the time out to be her teacher. And then you'll turn around and she'll show you a side of herself that you never seen. And what's crazy is this is a side of herself that her girlfriend saw years ago. I'm talking about her girlfriend saw like 35 years ago, and you never got a chance to see it. Or maybe she have a friend that they only been friends for 7 years, but you've been with for 45 years, but you never got a chance to see it. But she showed that side because women know how to make other women turn. Okay, y'all gotta do me a favor and like and share. This is gonna be good. Women know how to make women turn. We know how to turn our friends around. We know how to listen. We know how to sit back and see all of those different faces, right? And so you can mess around and turn her around to a face that she's ashamed of. And what I mean by that, she's ashamed to show it to you because she feels like you're going to degrade her in that area. For example, let's just say that she can sew, and you never really showed interest in that, but that's something she's passionate about. It's something that she was doing when she was a kid, but it's something that you kind of shrugged your shoulders and thought of it as a light hobby, nothing that deserves conversation, attention, or anything like that. She can turn around and she can show that to her friend, and her friend will buy her a sewing machine and say, "Hey girl, I'm gonna buy you this sewing machine." She said, "Well, I don't want to have it at my house. Can I leave it at your house?" And the friend said, "Girl, why?" "Girl, because Troy, he gonna sit up there. He make me feel funny, like, oh, what have you? He make me feel funny when I'm trying to sew. I mean, he don't say nothing abusive, but I just don't feel like supported by him." And so consequently, her friend can know more sides of her than you know. I'm telling you guys, it's going to be really, really good. It's going to be really, really good. But a man has sex with a woman. A husband is supposed to be intimate with his wife and vice versa, meaning there's a level of knowledge there. There's a level of knowledge, or we're multifaceted. The more sides you know of a person, the more intimate you'll be with them. Y'all getting it? Please don't leave me hanging today. The more sides, the more faces you see, the more intimate. So I know for me, when it comes, I'm multifaceted, right? You can spin me, but the thing that spins me is a desire to get to know me. If you have no desire to get to know me, I'm not one of those people that's going to keep turning myself around and trying to show you everything, because I think that's weird. That's just me. Now, some people out there, some women, especially women, especially to my sisters, you have a tendency, you meet a man and you are flipping yourself around. You are flipping, you're showing him every face that you know, not realizing that some of those faces are underdeveloped. Some of those faces are horrific. They're not pretty yet because God hasn't developed you in those areas. And the enemy, whenever he finds your black face, When I say your black face, I'm talking about your void. Whenever he finds that side of you, I always think of a hoodie. I think of this spinning person with his hoodie on. When they spin this side of you and there's nothing but blackness, a lot of times that's what's going to attract a broken man. That's the side of you that he's going to hold on to, because that's the side of him. That's the side of you that he can pour on, that he can pour into. So a man is supposed to know his wife, and a wife is supposed to know her husband. Number 3, man worships God, or should worship God. Man worships God through knowledge. You cannot worship God without knowing him. Man worship God through the knowledge of the Most High. That's 30-fold. Understanding the word, and understanding that God is his word, right? But understanding the word, that means that there's an agreement there because I pursued him a little bit deeper. That's 60-fold. And through submission. That's 100-fold. Submission is 100-fold. There are different types of submission. And one of the highest forms of submission is obedience. But it's not obedience as according to, I read the scripture and I fear God. Perfect love casts out fear. It's submission because I love you. I may not understand this, but I love you. I may not fully agree, but I love you. But hear me, the more you understand God, the more you're going to agree. As a matter of fact, understanding isn't complete until you come into agreement. Then you start understanding the principles of God. You start understanding, okay, I know why God said that sex outside of marriage is wrong. He was just trying to protect me. I know why God created sex. I know why God did this. I know why God did that. When you don't understand, you're just like a kid, like, I don't know why my parents won't let me date. It doesn't make sense. I feel like I'm old enough to date. And so you think your parents are only doing that just to be hard, to be difficult, or maybe they're doing it because they want to mirror what they see other people doing. So in other words, they're not necessarily parenting you by knowing that you're mature enough to keep yourself. They're not parenting you by that. And so when you think like that, you're more likely to rebel against your parents. However, if you know that your parents are parenting you from a good place, if you have an understanding of your parents, if you have knowledge of your parents, and you know that they're trying to protect you, if you know that they're trying to shield you, it's easier to submit. It is easier to submit. So man worships God through the knowledge of the Most High. That's 30-fold. It's knowing. You start knowing him by reading the Bible. Somebody can start knowing me by talking to me, right? Not just watching videos, but you have a measure of knowledge by watching videos. But if you start getting to know me, like students that join a mentorship program, they start knowing me on a more intimate level than YouTube, right? But getting to know me is different. But then you can get understanding of me. So if you just get to know me, you can have somebody in your life for 45 years and they just know you. They know they know, but they don't understand. And typically people that don't understand, there's going to be a lot of arguing, a lot of disagreeing, and it's hard for you to come together as one. The objective is to come together as one. And what was the third one? That was 60-fold and submission to God. Submission. Even when you submit to your husband, it comes because of trust. When you submit to God, it comes because of trust, also known as faith. It's having faith in God. Now, sex can be perverted when it is without intimacy because it overturns the hierarchy of God and exalts the body of the human over the spirit of God. I said a mouthful, but I'm going to go back in. Hey, thank you, Brother Dennis. I said a mouthful, but I'm going to go back in. I need you to pay attention to what I just said. Don't let any word fall to the ground. Don't let any word go past your head. Pay attention to what I just said. Sex can be perverted when it is without intimacy, without knowledge. Whenever you're getting in a bedroom with somebody and it's all about smack it up, flip it, rub it down. It's all about how you feel you're aroused. The other person is aroused. And that's when it becomes selfish. God literally did not create. Literally did not create us to be selfish. As a matter of fact, another word for sin, or a phrase that can be likened to sin, is self-worship. Is when I do what I want to do, regardless of what God says. That is sin. Sin is a form of self-worship. I was talking about this over the weekend, and I was talking about how people, and this is kind of like off the beaten path, how people attract narcissists. And so basically what happens is the way that you end up finding yourself as a narcissist is it always starts with sin or self-worship. Always. It always starts with sin of self-worship. You may not be out there fornicating. You may not be out there lying, stealing, or cheating, but you're not giving God glory. You're not giving God what belongs to him. You're too busy. You're looking in your mirror and you're making everything about you. You're trying to control people. You're trying to have what you want, right? You're being self-centered. It becomes about you. And so it's self-worship. And a narcissist, or the spirit of Jezebel that's in that narcissist, sees you worshiping yourself. They see you in church hucking and bucking and dancing or what have you, but they still see that arrogance. They still see that pride. They still see that disagreement between you and God. They still see that immaturity. They still see that rejection. They still see all of that self-worship. So what the narcissist does is they come over and then they start to worship you. I'm giving you a secret. We're gonna get back up in here, but they start to worship you. They start to say, "Oh, this is what we call love bombing." They start saying, "Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, I can't stop thinking about you. I mean, how am I supposed to live without you? How am I supposed to breathe without you? I'm trying to figure out, what did I do when I? Do you know how beautiful you are? Do you know how amazing you are? Do you know? And because you are a self worshiper, that stuff feels good to you. It gets tangled up in your wiring or what have you, and it starts puffing you up. And you go to this thing that we call cloud nine, also known as being in love, but it's not real love. It's a perverted form of love. But you go to cloud nine. Now you sit up over here thinking that you can't live without this person, but really, in reality, you're in love with that person's worship. And then what the narcissist does is they get you to that space, and then they create a demand. They create a demand or a need for you, a need for themselves, an addiction to themselves. This is the ungodly soul tie. They create that in your life, and as soon as they create that soul tie, they'll test you by ghosting you. They'll test you by trying to get away. They'll test you in different ways. But then, as soon as they get that soul tie, they'll turn around and look at you and say, "Now give me that worship. That worship that you've been giving to yourself, give it to me. If you want to stay with me, if you want to stick with me, if you want this thing to work between you and I, now give it to me." This is how that devil works. It starts with you worshiping yourself. This is why you are not entirely innocent whenever you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist. It started with you worshiping yourself. It started with you exalting yourself. It started with you sitting back and not giving God the glory. It started with you not spending time with God. It started with you making everything about you, playing the victim or what have you. So consequently, some demon from afar looked and said, "I like the way you worship yourself. I like the way you exalt yourself." And before long, that spirit came up to you and love bombed you, got you addicted to them. And then once it was over with, said and done, it said, "Now, if you want to keep me, give me that worship. If you want to stay, if you want me to stay in your life, give me that worship." And you want to know how they say it, y'all? You want to know how they say it? They say, "You're selfish." That's how they say it. They say you're selfish. In other words, you keep giving all that worship to yourself, and they're telling the truth. You are selfish. They're telling the truth. You are selfish. So what in that moment they're saying? You're selfish. In other words, I can't keep being with you and watching you worship yourself. I can't keep being with you and watching you whine and all this other stuff about what you're not getting. I can't keep being with you. And then they change the direction. It changes from them chasing you, and then they make you chase them. Y'all hear? They get you to chase them, right? They get you to chase them. That is how that works. Okay, where were we? Sex can be perverted when it is without intimacy, without knowledge, when a person doesn't necessarily know you. When you meet some guy, y'all go out and you're on your third date or what have you, and you think that's okay to go and stick your tongue in his skull, let him stick his tongue in your skull, and y'all rolling around. You have no idea of who you're laying with. You have no idea of what you're doing in that moment. It is without knowledge. It is without God. God can't be the third fold to that cord, because what you're doing is illegal. What you're doing is illegal because it overturns the hierarchy of God. This is the second part. Again, sex can be perverted when it is without knowledge or when it is without intimacy, because it overturns the hierarchy of God. Now, the true hierarchy, last shall be first, first shall be last. This is how we have it. But the true thing is this: it's supposed to be spirit over soul over body. Body is the last thing. Spirit over soul over body. Spirit over soul. But it overturns the hierarchy of God, and it makes it all about this. It makes it all about, man, I want to do this. It makes it all about you or what have you. It overturns the hierarchy of God and exalts the body of the human over the spirit of God. Are y'all getting it? It exalts the body over the spirit. It exalts the soul over the spirit. It becomes that the soul is the mind, will, and emotions. And see, the enemy, he gets your emotions involved. So typically, the emotions are supposed to be, a second. Remember, the body, the mind is the mind, will, and emotions. That is your soul. Mind, which is the heart. I'm going to show you how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to look like this. The mind is the heart. This is the center. This is what you're supposed to guard. This is the emotions. Anything that tries to get into your heart has to go through your emotions, right? So anything that comes into the conscious mind is going to try to come in 30-fold, 60-fold. 60-fold is when it gets into the heart, but it's going to try to get into you're going to feel it in your emotions. So typically, and even science says this, but typically, if something starts getting in my heart, so if I start talking to a dude, and he love bombs me, he says everything that I want him to say, right? He says all this pretty stuff, and I'm just sitting up there like, oh my gosh, or what have you. My heart's going to feel it. And that feeling is typically going to feel like I'm going to feel like I'm in love. I'm going to feel like I want to talk to him because I'm hot. That's not actual love. That's a feeling. True love is not a feeling. This is why the Bible says love never fails. Feelings fail. I don't know if you've been excited, but it went away. I don't know if you've been sad, but it went away. I don't know if you've been angry, but it went away. Every feeling that you've ever experienced has failed. But love cannot fail. It is absolute because God is love. It never ceases to exist. So this is the way that it's supposed to be. This is the mind. So this is the will. This is your outward expression. So I get to will. If somebody's talking to me, I get to decide whether I want to talk to them or not. Then I also get to will what I allow into my belief system. The belief system is located in the mind. So if somebody's sitting there telling me, so Tiffany, the earth is square. It's triangle on one side. It look like a heel. If they tell me that, I get to decide to cast it down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God and bring it into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. But in order to do that, I have to guard my heart. What do I guard my heart with? The truth. You will know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It'll also keep you free. I'm supposed to have the truth. That means I got to study the word and have the word around my heart. So when they're talking, it's going in one ear and out the other. When something is wrong, if it gets past my will, then my emotions get involved. My emotions will say, that's wrong. That's not good. That's nasty. That's filthy. That's this. That's that. And then if I let it get past my emotions, it'll get into my heart. But if I'm secure here, it shouldn't even get into my emotions. But what perversion does is it takes the emotions. Let me show you. Let me just scratch this off. We'll do it this way. It takes the emotions. You have the mind. Now your will is right here. And now you are emotional. That means everything that comes is all about feeling. Everything that happens is all about somebody said this, somebody did that, somebody is all about feeling. And so whenever it becomes about feeling, then the enemy can come and you're easily love bombed. You're easily love bombed because then you start to idolize how you feel. You start to idolize your emotions, which means you'll quit as soon as you're offended. You'll give up as soon as you're scared. And then at the same time, you'll give in if people say the right thing. You won't test the spirit. All you know is that somebody is saying something that sounds good to you and you like the way that it feels. All you know is that somebody is saying something to you and you like the way it feels. So sex can be perverted when it is without intimacy because it overturns the hierarchy of God and exalts the body of the human over the spirit of God. Next point I want to get is it's okay for a man to have sex with his wife because he knows her. So just to kind of stop, do me a favor, be sure to like and share. Be sure to like and share. It's okay for a man to have intercourse, to have sex with his wife. Remember, we talked about there's sex, there's intimacy, and then there's worship. It is never okay for a man to worship his wife. It is never okay for a wife to worship her husband. That worship belongs to God. This is him being the head of the house, right? Worship belongs to God. It is okay for a man to have sex with his wife, which means a lower form of intimacy. You have intimacy, which is in the middle, but you also have sex. When it comes down to sex, sex is about self-satisfaction. So in marriage, there are going to be times, and this you're only supposed to do this in marriage. Outside of marriage, there's not going to be any intimacy or not much intimacy because God will hide a wife from you. You can be with a woman and God hides her. You can be married to her for 47 years and God will still hide her because you didn't seek him out. And so that means that all that we talked about her being multifaceted, you're also multifaceted. You won't know yourself and you won't know her. So you'll be fighting with her and aggravated with her because God has given you no revelation as it relates to her. So you're now having to do the law of works. You're having to try to figure things out. But it's okay for a man to have sex with his wife. In other words, there will be times where, when you're married, of course, that intercourse has nothing to do with knowledge. It has nothing to do with, okay, I want to please her, because intimacy is, it's all about you in a moment. Intimacy works better like that. Intimacy, when you're married, you're like, it's all about you. And he says, it's all about you. He says, I want to please you. And I know you. I've gotten to know you. I've gotten to know your body. I've gotten to know what you like. And you're saying the same thing. That's what makes intimacy, or makes it intimacy, because it's selfless. It's selfless. Sex is selfish. Sex is selfish. So there are times in marriage, because I don't want to confuse anybody. There are times in marriage where it'll be all about the husband, or it'll be all about the wife. And it can be times where you wake up early in the morning, right? He got to get ready to go to work, and you still sleeping in the bed. You still knocked out, but he wake up. You know how men wake up, but he wakes up and he's having a sunny day. The sun has risen. We'll say it that way. The sun has risen. He wakes up and he's completely selfish in that moment, because in that moment he see that you sleep. He know that you went to bed at 4 a.m. It is now 7 a.m. And he don't care nothing about that. He's not waking you up to please you. He's waking you up because in that moment he wants to have intercourse. In that moment he wants to have intercourse. Hear me when I say this. There's nothing wrong with that, because sex is needed just like intimacy is needed. You got to hear me when I say that sex is needed in marriage. And this is why the Bible tells us, husbands, your body don't belong to you. And wives, your body don't belong to you. If your husband wants to have sex with you, then that's his right. If he wants to have sex with you, it doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. and you got to get up in 2 hours. You don't know what's going on. You don't know what may be happening spiritually. You don't know what may be happening within him. But if he wants to have sex with you, or you want to have sex with him, you don't necessarily have a right. I mean, you have the ability, but not necessarily the right. Now, you can, unless you're talking about it from a worldly standpoint, it's my body. Christian or spiritual standpoint, my body belongs to God. And God also says my body belongs to my husband. And my husband's body belongs to me whenever we're married, of course. And so when it comes down to that, there are times where you will have sex. I'm only saying that because I don't want to confuse anybody. I don't want you to sit there and when you do get married, or for those of you who are married, sit there and look at your husband and say, what you're trying to do with me right now is sex. It has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with you. And that is selfish. And I was listening to Tiffany Buckner, and I'm going to deny you that. No, there are times when you're going to want to have sex. Your husband not going to want it. I know that's a foreign concept to you, but believe it or not, women typically, in many cases, are more in marriage, can be a little bit more high strung than men. Women can be a little bit more high strung than men, okay, when it comes to sex, or what have you, because women are emotional creatures, and a lot of times women want intimacy. Women don't necessarily want sex. Women, in many cases, want intimacy. A man can wake up having a sunny day and he just want to have sex. That's it. All he want to do is he want to come in, he want to do what he do, and then he want to go to work, or what have you. So you will have encounters like that in marriage, so don't be offended by that. But it's okay for a man to have sex with his wife because he knows her. Because he knows her, he must dwell with her according to knowledge as the weaker vessel. He must dwell with her according to knowledge as the weaker vessel. In other words, to my brothers in Christ, one of the things that dwelling with her according to knowledge, you have to be aware of your own strength. You have to be aware of her body. You have to be aware of her, what's going on with her mentally. You have to be aware of what's going on with her spiritually and emotionally. You have to be aware of those things. It's not a good idea. One of the things that destroys marriage is a lot of guys will argue and say women get married, and I gotta go through these pointers, y'all. But women get married and they shut down sexually. You know, they don't know. Anytime, you got to hear me when I say this. When you say that, in most cases, I'm not going to say all cases, in many cases, majority of cases, the problem is you. The problem is you. I'm going to get deeper into that when I get into the pointers, but the problem is you, because you're too busy trying to have sex with her and you haven't had intimacy, meaning you're not dwelling with her in accordance with knowledge. You're more so selfish. You keep on doing everything about you. Okay, I know this is early in the day. Can we go rated PG-13? It should be rated R. Can we go there? Do me a favor. If you haven't liked this, share, subscribed already, be sure to do this. I'm going to keep it raw with you. I'm going to keep it real with you. One of the ways that you're not dwelling with her according to knowledge, you know good and well, and I got to keep, I'm sorry, this may be a little bit too, this trigger warning may be a little too raw for some of y'all, but you know that you blow your top in 3 minutes. You've had enough experience with her to know that you like her body like that, and that she knows your body, she knows what to do, that you blow your top in 3 minutes. You already know that you're tempted to be finished in 3 minutes. We'll say it that way. You're tempted by the 3 minute mark, 4 minute mark, 5 minute mark, you about to blow your top. You know that. But you know, if you've been with her long enough, that it takes her 20 minutes to get there. Okay, y'all want me to go there? All right. You know it takes her 20 minutes to get there. You keep blowing your top in 3 minutes and saying, I'm sorry, we're just too good. I'm sorry, we're just too good. Your wife will stop wanting to have sex with you. Your wife will stop wanting to have sex with you because you keep leaving her hanging. She will stop wanting to have sex with you because you keep talking about some, I know, I'm sorry, give me 5 minutes, round 2, then you go sound asleep. You lay there. What you're doing is not intimacy. That's sex. So when you keep having sex with a woman, a lot of times you will close the heavens. If you get what I'm saying, you'll close the heavens over yourself as it relates to that woman, because what you're doing is constantly thinking about you, and you're using the excuse that she put that move on you, and you know what that move. No, what you have to do is you have to know your own body. You have to know, okay, it takes my wife like 20 minutes to get there. So I have to learn different things that I can do to stop me from blowing my top. One of those things I may imagine a time when I was watching my favorite football team. Just take your imagination and do something crazy with it. I'm going to imagine a time my favorite football team, my favorite football player fumbled the ball. I'm going to imagine that. I'm going to do something to make everything kind of settle down. I may have to, stop, tell her to stop, or what have you. I got to do something to stop it. If not, you lose self-control, which means that you get so caught up in it that in that moment, you just get so caught up in yourself, and then you blow your top early. And if you do that, then your wife, you'll start being one of those men that say when women get married, they no longer want to have sex. You're right. Women want intimacy. Women were actually created for intimacy. A man can have sex with a wife. We talked about this. A man can have sex with his wife, but if you don't give her intimacy, you will shut the heavens. Your wife is a representative of intimacy or representative of worship, right? So you can shut the heavens over you can shut the heavens over yourself, if you get what I'm saying, which means that your wife won't open up to you. Your wife won't be willing. Your wife will keep claiming to have headaches simply because you are too busy trying to get what you want and not thinking about what she wants. All right. Let me give you some facts and truths, more facts and truths that will help you when it comes down to this. Y'all, I'm surprised. Can I be honest with y'all? I'm surprised like 500 or 600 people ain't in here, because this is a good lesson. I'm surprised 5 or 6, but I think a lot of people at work. But if you haven't shared, do me a favor, like and share. Number 1 is a scripture: meats for the belly, meats for the belly, and the belly for meats. But God shall destroy both it and them. Now, the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord, and the Lord for the body. That's 1 Corinthians 6:13. 1 Corinthians 6:13, meats for the belly and the bellies for meats. He's trying to show you that every part of you, everything that you have, is created for something. This is what perversion means. It's to utilize a part of your body and use it for something, or utilize anything that was created and use it for something different. So here it is saying, meats for the belly and the belly for meats, but God shall destroy both it and them, meaning they're carnal, they're temporary. Now, the body is not for fornication. This is God saying that's perversion. I did not create your body for pleasure. You're going to get pleasure in marriage. You're going to get pleasure in those things, but I didn't create your body solely and separately for that. You cannot separate what I created your body for and use it for your own pleasure, and use it for your own desires. So the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord. This is your sacrifice. Remember Romans 12:1. Present your body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your reasonable service. Your body was literally not created for fornication. Your body was created for sacrifice. What I'm supposed to do is I'll take this body, and even when the body becomes sacrifice when your body starts saying it wants sex. Your body ain't sacrifice when you're sitting up cramping and you ain't thinking nothing about sex. It becomes sacrifice when you genuinely want something and you sacrifice the desire, or you ignore the desire, you decline the desire. And instead of doing that, you present your body to God. You presented, God, this is your body. Use me in any way you see fit. Use me, instead of picking up the phone and saying, hey, is this Jerome? Yeah, I'm just calling you to see what you're doing. You act like I can't call you. You want to come over? What's that? Come on, you can come over. Right, that's how you lose your minds. But your body was not created for fornication. Your body was created for worship. It is a part of the sacrifice. It is part the Cain offering versus the Abel offering. Abel offered meat. Cain offered a vegetarian vegan diet. He came up to God and said, here goes some flowers. Here goes some stuff from the earth. Let me give you some flowers. Let me give you this. And God's like, no, give me something that you care about. Give me something that you want. Give me something that has value to you. Give me something that you feel like you can't live without. This is how we break idolatry. The body was not made for fornication. So when your body as a single and my body as a single says, man, I want to roll around, I want to do this and I want to do that, it becomes sacrifice when you sit back and start talking to your body and you deny your body. It is not sacrifice when you call somebody and start talking freaky, even though you didn't do anything. That's religion. When you get on the phone and start saying, what you doing? What you said? No, it becomes sacrifice when you sit back and say, even though I want this, I present my body as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is my reasonable service. Lord, what would you like me to do in this moment? And God may say, go out and minister. God may say, go fast. God may say, go read your Bible. God may say, go worship me, but you do something with your body. Number 2, marriage is an agreement between minds. So a lot of people think that marriage means when we go to the altar. No, marriage is agreement. So I can take this water, which has been over here forever, and marry it with this Vaseline that's been over here forever. Now, I won't mix it for the most part, but I could probably get some of it mixed because this has a moisture element to it. I can probably and so what mixes is what we call marriage. So if I take this and I pour Kool-Aid and this into a bottle, they're gonna marry. Meaning they're gonna unite together and create something. That's what marriage is. It is a uniting of what have you. But marriage is an agreement between minds. When you start talking about marriage between people, it is an agreement between minds. But the institution of marriage is an agreement between God and the husband of the bride. Yeah, I promise y'all this is good. I want to get off here. I'm frustrated because I'm like, y'all gotta share this. You gotta share this because this is good. Marriage is an agreement between minds, but the institution of marriage is an agreement between God and the husband. It is an agreement. I will cover her. It has always been between the husband and the father. Even in the biblical days, the man went to the father of the woman. It was not an agreement. Now her father would ask her. Some cases they wouldn't. Most cases, the father would say, "Hey, such and such likes you. He wants to marry you. What do you say?" And the woman say, "Daddy, I trust you." Most of the time, that's what the women would say. They had a really good father. They say, "Daddy, I trust you. Whatever it is that you want, I don't care that he cockeyed his head. His head is got this real deep slope or what have you. It look like a Georgia street, and I don't care that he's sitting up here and when he look at me, he just like this. I don't care nothing about that, Dad. Because if you say he good, I trust you." I say, yeah, but I'm just telling you, don't treat the grandkids different, right? Just because when they come up over there and they're like, "Hey, granddad, nah, you chose him for me. You chose him, so don't say nothing." But marriage is an agreement between the minds, but the institution of marriage is an agreement between God and the husband, which is why you see God dealing with the husband. If you put away a woman, you cause her to go into the sin of adultery, which put away doesn't mean divorce. We're not going to go there. It is something they used to do back in the day where they would put a woman away, meaning they would cut her out of their presence, wouldn't allow her to come back, but they wouldn't divorce her out of fear of shame and having to give back the bride price. But that is another story for another day. But marriage is an agreement between minds, but the institution of marriage is between the husband and God. Right? They asked Rebecca if she would go. The institution of marriage is between a man and God. That is to say, we talk about hierarchy. Christ is the head of man. We already know God is the head of Christ. Christ is the head of man. Man is the head of woman. So the institution of marriage is an agreement between man and God. It is not an agreement between man and woman. Woman is a weaker vessel. It is an agreement in the biblical days. It would be an agreement between hierarchies, rank between daddy and the groom, the father and the groom. It's an agreement between man and God. It is not an agreement between husband and wife. Woman can agree. She has part in it, so don't sit there and start feeling like a victim to my ladies. You still have part in it, but it's an agreement between, because this is why the husband is the head of the home. He makes an agreement with God as to how he's going to head his household up, or this is what he's supposed to do. Number 3, the Greek word porneia means adultery, fornication, homosexuality, lesbianism, intercourse with animals, sexual intercourse with close relatives. And this comes from Bible Study Tools lexicon. The Greek word porneia, which is where we get the word porn or pornography. The Greek word porneia means adultery, fornication. These are illegal, illicit, immoral forms of sexual behavior. But it means adultery, fornication, homosexuality, lesbianism, intercourse with animals, sexual intercourse with close relatives. All of those are illegal. Number 4, before the fall of man, the spirit of Adam was located in the will of God. I may have to draw it out. But before the fall of man, the spirit of Adam was located in the will of God. This is the garden or the place of order, and anything Adam did to Eve's body was legal. It wasn't perverted or influenced by an extensive sexual history with other people, media, or an unquenched sexual desires. In other words, Adam wasn't up in there, trying to figure out. Let me say it this way. It's gonna make some people feel weird. A lot of the stuff that we do in the bedroom, a lot of stuff that happens in bedrooms, is stuff that you saw on TV. It's not intimacy. It's not doing things according to knowledge of the other person. It is just an experiment and an attempt to reach a height in worship that only God can usher you into. Does that make sense? You can only go into that through okay, just saying worship. You can worship God and you'll notice that you reach a certain height, right? In your worship, a certain height of his presence, you'll reach a certain height or what have you. You'll notice that other people seem to go higher in their worship. When they go higher in their worship, they get lost, they're shaking and falling all over the place. You worship God and you just feel the presence of God, but there's just not much of that. So what's happening is it has everything to do with their wine, but they're also in some cases getting a different measure of access because their worship is deeper, and their worship is deeper because their revelation is deeper. They have a greater knowledge of God, a greater understanding of God, which opens them up all the more for the presence of God, which is why they seem to quake and all these things happen in the presence of God. But it's similar in marriage. So in marriage, there are different heights that you can reach with a person. There are different levels of, I don't want to say pleasure, but I think that's the word. But there are different, it's like revelation in sexual intercourse. There are different things that you can reach with a person. Your body and your mind can sense another level, even though you can't get to it. It's the same thing in worship. You can sense that I can go to the next level, but sometimes what you'll do is you'll climax before you get there because you're scared of the next level. You're afraid of going that deep into God's presence. You're afraid of what have you. So sometimes when it comes down to sex, you can get to a certain level and you decide to kind of give up there. You decide to explode there. So a lot of times what people do is they can sense the next level and they don't know how to get there with the other person. They're having intercourse with one another, but they've never gone beyond a certain point. So sometimes what people do is they start trying to employ the use of tools. They start getting into corn, you know what I mean. They start getting, because what you're doing is your spirit man is looking for another level, or you're trying to go to another level of worship. This is your Tower of Babel of sorts. This is your Tower of Babel of sorts. This is you trying to get to someplace that only God can permit you into. I can go in there and worship, and I can sit there and I can sense another level. I can want another level, but until I go deeper, and even when I go deeper, God still has to give me grace to come that far into his presence. God has to still give me permission. He has to give me grace to come to have that measure of access to him. So a lot of times people don't understand it. So what they do is they start getting, okay, I'm going to get a Kama Sutra book. I'm going to get me a water gun, dildo. I'm going to go get I'm gonna go get me a metal strap on with some screws and stuff like that, because they keep thinking that I need to do all of this stuff. People start getting involved into swinging. They start getting involved in a lot of different things, because what you're doing, unbeknownst to you, is you're trying to reach another level. This is your Tower of Babel. You're trying to reach another height in sex, but you don't reach that height through perverted means. You don't reach that right height. You will find that you're enjoying it. This is you building the tower. This is you building the tower. You will find that you're having experiences that you never had before. But let's be real. By the time you get to the top of it, right, everything comes crumbling down. What did I just hear? By the time you get to the end of it, everything starts crumbling down. By the time you get to the end of it, you have, and this is for lack of a better term, but you have a not so great, the big O ain't as big as you thought it was going to be. It's just as weak as the other ones, or he may be weaker than the other ones that you had. Even though you were climb, I promise I'm trying to make sense. But even though you were climbing, you were having a different encounter, you're having a different experience, but your big O turns out to be okay, or is average, because there are certain heights that you can get to, certain heights you can't get to. So before the fall of man, the spirit of Adam was located in the will of God. This is the garden, or the place of order, and anything Adam did to Eve's body was legal. It wasn't perverted or influenced by an extensive sexual history with other people, or media, or unquenched sexual desires. Most marriages, I'll say this, marriages where you start seeing people having marital affairs and stuff like that, it has everything to do with, the war is not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and the rulers of this dark world, spiritual wickedness in high places. It has everything to do with one of the spouses needing intimate time with God, not knowing how to get it, and misinterpreting what he's feeling or what she's feeling, and then going into other means or going into other methods in an attempt. And so what they a lot of times would do is say, well, I've reached a pinnacle. I've reached a certain height with this woman. I can't seem to go further with her. Not realizing that in order to go further, there has to be a new level of intimacy. This is why people who've been married for 20 and 30 years, in many cases, they have very satisfying sex lives, because they have a level of knowledge with one another. They have a level of intimacy. The woman is constantly growing. The man is constantly growing. You're ever evolving. And so in marriage, you're having to constantly reintroduce yourself to the person, and then you're having to get to know who they have become before that they fully become that person. It's constant evolving. If you marry somebody who's stuck and you're evolving, you'll have a fight, because they're not going to want to get to know who you are, because who you are is not the person who they married. But if they're constantly evolving, there's going to be a constant marriage, which means a constant agreement, a constant agreement. It's going to be a constant growing. So this is why you don't want to marry somebody that is stuck. Where was I at? All right, let's just go ahead and move on to number 5. Number 5, when you feel the desire to have sex, your spirit man may be asking, and I'm talking to the singles, I'm talking to the married folks as well. When you feel the desire to have sex, your spirit man may be asking for an intimate encounter with the Most High. I've talked on this before. But when it attempted to communicate this with you, because your wiring is perverted, because of sin, iniquity, You unknowingly twisted what you heard. This is why your orgasm, where was I? This is why your orgasm was followed by the spirit of guilt, shame, and condemnation. That was a lie. I'm going to say it again. When you feel the desire, and I'm talking about ungodly sex, sex outside of marriage. When you feel the desire to have sex, your spirit man may be asking for an intimate encounter with the Most High. So your spirit man is going to communicate with your soul, and your soul is going to go ahead. It's going to communicate through your mind, and it's expressed through your body. So when you feel the desire to have sex, your spirit man may be saying to your soul, "I need time with God. I need an intimate encounter with God." But because of iniquity and sin, when it comes to you, it goes through your wires, it comes through your pipes, and it's perverted, and your pipes are perverted. And you may interpret that as, I need to have sex. I want to have sex. You may interpret it and misinterpret what you've heard. And this is why the orgasm is typically followed with guilt, shame, and condemnation. Hopefully that made sense. Not made sex, but hopefully that made sense. Number 6, men create the weapons Men create the weapons to bring down other men by having sex with women outside of marriage, weaker vessels. I got one for women too, but we're going to stop on this one real quick. To my brothers, you create the weapons to bring down other men. You shouldn't awaken love before it's time. All the same, women are the weaker vessel, which means you're held at a higher regard. Anyone who causes one of the little ones, and when it says little ones, it's not just talking about children, it's talking about rank. If you cause one of the little ones to fall, then it'd be better if you were cast into the lake and a millstone was hung about your neck. It would be better for you. So God doesn't play about this thing called rank, because when it comes down to rank, because God gave you a higher role, you have a greater measure of responsibility, which means that you will get a greater punishment. But men create the weapon. So whenever you do that, whenever you, let's say, for example, you take the weaker vessel. Weaker means that she's weaker emotionally. It means that she's not just weaker in strength, but she's weaker in many cases in reason. So you can create the weapon that was formed against you and other men by having intercourse with a woman that you're not married to. And then the next thing you know, you walk away, you leave her with a kid, you leave her broken or what have you, and now you just left a void. Because every time somebody has intercourse with another person, you create a space for you in that person's life. And once you move out of that space, it creates a void. I promise I'm trying to make sense. So once you move out of that space, so if I'm married, because that's the only time I'm having sex, but if I'm married, I'm going to have my soul will have a space in it, or a space in my heart for my husband. It's going to be in the shape of him. It's going to be in the shape of him. If something happens and he leaves, let's say that his name was Jason. I would have a Jason sized void in my heart. If I'm broken, immature, and I don't understand the things of God, I'm going to constantly keep getting men trying to fill that void. Y'all don't leave me hanging out here. I will constantly keep going out here getting men in my attempt to fill that void. I'll be out here, now I'm talking to Jerome. So what'd you say? All that. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fill the void of Jason. If Jerome and I get intimately involved with Jerome, then I'm going to have two voids. One of the size of Jason, one of the size of Jerome. Okay. Consequently, I will become a weapon formed against men. I'll become a soul snatcher. Men create the weapons to bring down other men by having sex with women outside of marriage. These are the weaker vessels. Number 7, women create the types of men through sexual sin and childbirth that they complain about. Women create the types of men through sexual sin. You say you want a good man, but why are you screwing the wrong one? You say you want a good man, you got to understand you can't get a good man through sin. Okay, you can't go on a blessing. You can't go into sin looking for a blessing. You will not find a blessing in sin. You cannot go into something bad looking for something good. That is the evidence that your mind is not right, that you're still into self-worship, and that deteriorates the mind, right? But women create the types of men through sexual sin. So when you're sitting here, you're telling a man he's good enough as he is. Even though you plan to change him, you don't like the way he thinks, you don't like that, but you legalize that behavior in your life, and you create that, and then because you have no revelation of God, no revelation of yourself, you have no revelation of the person that you're with. Consequently, you end up having children that you have no revelation of, and you will typically raise your sons to be like the men that hurt you. Oh, I'm gonna talk today. I'm gonna talk today. You will typically raise your sons to be just like the men that hurt you, which is why some of you put earrings in a 1-year-old's ear. You got your sons dressed like grown men, got their pants sagging. You got him looking like the man that left, looking like the soul tie that you have, looking like the one that didn't want anything to do with you, wanted your body but didn't want your spirit. And this is because you did not understand that you are a spirit inside of a body. You are a spirit inside of a body. That means if a man comes up to you, and I need every female on here to hear this, if a man comes up to you and the only thing he's interested in, he don't too much want to know your plans, your desires, he don't want to know the deep things about you. But all he keeps talking about is your shape and what you could do for him. That's all he seems to keep talking about. That's a person that doesn't like you. He doesn't like you. He likes your body. And you are not your body. You are inside of a body. You are a spirit inside of a body. The part of you that lives forever, the part of you that would be impacted by the sex, the part of you that would be impacted by their rejection. Why would you marry the spirit of rejection? Why would you have children with the spirit of rejection? He represents rejection, which means that he's not accepting of you. He doesn't like your mind. He doesn't like the way that you think. He doesn't care about your plans. You sit back talking about something. I want to start a bread making business. He don't care about that. That's not important to him. It just sounds silly. Oh, that's good. That's good. But did anybody tell you fine? Look at you. I see why you want that bread. You be eating that cornbread, ain't He's not interested in you. He's interested in the shell. And you get into those type of relationships and you whine and you cry when you legalize this behavior in your life. He showed you who he was, but you didn't believe him. Because typically, let's just be honest, women have a tendency to think that they can change a man's mind. Okay. Women have a tendency to think they can change a man's mind. He came up to me because he liked me. He's physically attracted. Then you get with him and you think that I'm gonna cook for him. I'm gonna take his children and treat him like my own. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna wow his mother. I'm gonna tell him, hey, yes, Miss such and such. Yeah, I love. Oh yeah, your son. I love. Yeah, he sure do. And you think that by doing all that he's gonna look and say, I think she the one. That is a lie from the maxi pad of hell. It's a lie. You have to understand that if a man is seeking a wife, if a man wants a girlfriend, you shouldn't want him. If a man is not, if he's not at a stage in his life where he wants a wife, if he's not in a stage in his life, now it doesn't mean that he is out here saying, where's my wife? Where's my wife? But there's an inner knowing. I think this is a time, so if he hasn't made that up in his mind, but all he wants to do is just kind of play house with a woman, that shouldn't be somebody you entertain. That's not somebody you tell yourself that, okay, I can change his mind. All I got to do is cook for him. All I got to do is put it on him real good. All I got to do is flatter his mama and talk to his dad and get his daddy on my side. All I got to do is make his children like me, and then he going to choose me. No. You represent an instrument of worship. And I'm going to say this out loud. I know I need every woman to hear this. This is when a man finds his wife. God gives him revelation about you. You don't need a man to figure you out. I don't need to tell a man everything there is to know about me, including my blood type. I don't need to do all of that. All I need to do is get to know him, let him get to know me to an extent, and he needs to be in the face of God. Oh, God. Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that y'all are understanding. I promise you, I want you to understand. If God doesn't give him permission to have me, God gives him no revelation of me, which means that I have to have a works type relationship, whereas I'm spending a lot of time trying to convince him as to who I am. There is a measure of seek, because he who finds a wife, he has a seek. That means that he has to study me. And if a man's not studying you, he don't really care. You know what I feel like? You know what I feel like is happening right now? Some of you are in relationships like that. You're in relationships where you realize you're nothing but a body. You realize you're a blow-up doll, a free one at that. You realize that he got you for a Chick-fil-A sandwich and an ice cream cone from Wendy's. You realize that this person is only in your life based on what he can extract from you. You realize that this man is not the one, even though you want him to be the one because you made a soul tie or you created a soul tie with him. That's why you're quiet. You're quiet because it's hard for you to conceptualize that I gave this man 7 years of my life and this man don't want me. I gave this man 5 years of my life and this man is not here for me. I gave this man 7 or 8, 9, 10 years and this man doesn't love me. No, love is not a product of you just getting to know a person. God is love. God is the third fold in the cord. Love comes as a result of revelation. When he seeks the heart of the Father, when he goes to God in relation to you, this is an intentional man. An intentional man is a prayerful one. When he goes to the heart of the Father and says, God, I like this woman, this woman of God, I think, so highly of her. And God, I be honest with you, I would love to know if I can make her my wife. And God, show me what I need to know. Would you give me permission? When he begins to seek God, if God gives the yes, God's yes looks like revelation. God's yes looks like revelation. God will give him knowledge about her. God will give him insight. God will give him, he'll sit back and he'll say, you know what I realized about you? Right now you're a little bit upset with me, but it's not about the fact that I didn't, that I canceled our date. It has everything to do with the fact that how you interpret it, because from what you told me, God would give. Okay, I was telling my students this. I said, anytime if a guy comes to me, right? If a guy comes to me, trying to date or what have you, and I pray and I say, God, show me, because I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste his time. I don't want to waste my time. You know how God answers me? God answers me by giving me questions to ask the man. Y'all don't even know. Y'all don't even know. He answers me. This is what relationship looks like. God doesn't say, no, that's not him. He doesn't say, get rid of him fast. God says, ask him this. God says, ask him this, ask him that. And it's usually intimate prophetic knowledge. And so what that does is it makes the person look like, wait, what do you know? What's going on? God tells me what to ask. This is the same thing. Anytime you pray and you get God involved, God gives you a word of knowledge. God will typically tell you what to ask and what to look for. God will tell you, God will say, okay, this is what I want you to seek. Ask this question. And it could be something really simple. It could be something really simple. What happened between you and your ex-wife? Why you asking me that? I told y'all we were divorced. I told you, we divorced like 4 years ago. I know, and you told me because y'all just weren't getting along, but there's more to that story. There's more, and I want to hear. And when a man knows you're prophetic, he knows that there's something. This is why relationship with God should be first. When a man knows that you're prophetic, he knows you're not asking that for no reason. You're asking that for a reason. When he knows that you are in the face of God, when he knows that you're at the feet of God, I'm asking for a reason. I'm asking, I may already know, or God is telling me to ask you, because God is giving you the opportunity to open up. And oftentimes that question is designed to give you revelation. The revelation is designed so that you will run. The revelation is designed so you can know this is God answering me. God is answering me by telling me, ask this question. And typically it's going to be something very uncomfortable for the man. So I'm saying that to say, it's very similar when a man is trying to date a woman. When he's trying to get to know a woman, if he's intentional, he's prayerful. If he's prayerful, God will typically, if God is giving him, if God's saying no, God will typically give him a question. God will give him insight so that he can run. If the answer is yes, God will tell him what he needs to say, what he needs to do. He'll tell him how to cover that woman in that moment. He'll tell her. And sometimes it could be something so small that is significant to that woman. We were talking about this. My students came down, and I talked about, sometimes I've counseled men and they say, my woman, women aren't submissive. These women ain't submissive. Black woman ain't submissive. And I look and I say, submit her. Oh, I made 10 people on here mad. I promise you, I know I did. Submit her. And what am I saying? Am I telling him to put her in a headlock? No. Am I telling him to curse her out and dominate her? No. What I'm telling him is to build your trust with her. Let her see that you are intentional, that you're a man of your word, and she will submit to that. And if out of all of those things you show her she still doesn't submit, that may be God's way of saying run. She did it. Submit her. Sometimes you submit through that. Sometimes you got to submit it through words. Sometimes you got to sit back and say, as for me and my house, we're gonna serve the Lord. That foolishness, that friend of yours that you've been trying to bring up in here, and she don't know what it means. She can't close her legs for nothing. She don't respect marriage. She don't respect that. She is not allowed back in this house. She ain't allowed back in this house. Period. Point blank. She ain't coming up in this house. I asked the students, and I'll say this. I'm pretty sure I said it on here, so y'all will probably know the answer. I asked my students. I said, when a man does that, what happens? When you know he's integral, when you know he's godly, when he comes at you hard like that, what happens? Can somebody tell me? Somebody tell me. Can somebody tell me if he's sitting up? Because I'm going to show you. If you're sitting back and you just being rebellious and you fluffing up and you telling you going off and what have you, your husband said, end of the day, she can't come back in this house. End of story. I'm not going to continue in this argument with you. What does she do? Right, she submits. But what is one of the things that she typically does? I'm going to show y'all something. I'm going to show you something. I'm waiting. I'm going to give two more. I'm waiting for two more answers. And I'm going to say, I'm trying to give somebody an opportunity to speak. You listen and follow his lead. Yep, to an extent, but it's something that she does with her body. What does she do? She's something she does with her body. Go out with a friend? No. Pouts. Miss E, you got it. Typically, she acts like a kid. That is a form of submission with a woman. Women do this right here. Am I wrong? I said this, not cut him off. That's a broken woman. In that moment, a woman will pout because she like it and don't like it at the same time. You could even tell me I'm a lie. She like it and don't like it at the same time. She like that the man is trying to guard his marriage. He's trying to protect and he's standing his ground. She don't like it because there's that part of her that, that rebellious part, that part of her that wants to believe that the friend is good and the husband. So she likes it and doesn't like it at the same time. This is what women do. Whenever a man takes his space, unless if you sit up there and get emotional with her and you're a hypocrite, no, she's going toe to toe with you. That's a form of disrespect. But if a man sits back and he says, end of story, she's not coming here. And I don't want to hear about it no more. Women typically will do this right here. And you're going to have fun with her tonight. I'm sorry. Because women are turned on by men who walk in their authority, who recognize that they're softer than them, but who are not emotional. Women love when a man sits back and says, hey, and especially if she knows it's for her good. You can't do that and be a hypocrite because that's going to be a fight. A woman loves when a man takes the headship position. But if a man turns into a big ball of emotions, no, you can do what you want to do. No, that's what I'm doing. That's what's wrong with y'all women. You're going to fight. She won't respect you. If he sits back and he says, end of story, you go in there and pout. You can go for a drive, do whatever you feel like you need to do when it calm down. But she ain't coming back in this house. We were on number 7. Let's go ahead and move on to number 8. Let's move on to number 8. Number 8, in every species of animals, the male mounts or humbles the female. And we're talking about sex. In every species of animal. Now, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with other positions. There's nothing wrong with them. But I'm saying that the missionary position is symbolic of the man being the covering. Most of the time when you're married, the majority of your encounters with your spouse are going to be missionary. They may start off missionary, but most of the time your encounters are going to be missionary. That is symbolic of the husband being the covering. That is symbolic. And we're talking about intimacy. When you start talking about sex, when it gets perverted, then a lot of times it becomes bullet wounds, slap in the back of the head with a belt, do something crazy to the woman, right? Because again, what's happening is sex outside of marriage is an attempt to build a personal Tower of Babel. It's trying to reach the heights of intimacy that God only invites people, his sons and daughters, into that are in his will. But you're trying to find another way outside of it, and you can sense that realm. And so consequently, you'll find yourself at the store buying all types of tools, buying all types of gadgets, because you're trying to get to that height, but you can never really get to that height. And a lot of times when you're dealing with broken people, they interpret it as, you don't know what you're doing, or I need to go do something with somebody else and I can go higher. But they don't go higher, they just get something different. They don't go higher, they'll get something different. In every species of animals, the male mounts or humbles the female. That represents humbling. That represents humbling. The Bible even refers to it as humbling, but it represents humbling the female. Example, I put in here an example. So there's this lady I watch on TikTok. I think her name is Katie Van Syke. So she has a farm. I'm an animal lover, right? I'm an animal lover. She has a farm, and every time I come across her videos, I stop and watch them, what have you. And she has these donkeys on her farm. She has two donkeys, one named Blanche and the other, what's the other one's name? Dolly. So I'm always watching and what have you. So now she's trying to breed her donkeys. One of her friends let her borrow her male donkey. So the male donkey is staying there for like a month and some change, getting ready to go back. But Dolly went into heat first, and she went into flaming heat. Dolly went into heat and what have you. They had another male donkey there, but he was a virgin. They bought him in. She borrowed him from somebody else. He was a virgin. He would try to mount, but the other donkeys were kicking him. And so, yeah, when I tell you animal love is funny, but he didn't know how to get past all of the rejection. They went and got Mr. Hank. Mr. Hank got hundreds of, if not thousands of kids. Mr. Hank know what he's doing. He's like 16 years old. Mr. Hank got experience up in there. So they went and got Mr. Hank from another friend. And y'all forgive me, I'm not into donkey porn. She has horses and all that other stuff, but this is just one of the stories in her thing, is that the donkeys they go into heat once a month or what have you. So she wants to breed them. So she got two females. She didn't have a male. So she went got Mr. Hank, which is a male donkey. Mr. Hank got Dolly almost immediately. She went into flaming heat. And she already had kids before. She went into flaming heat. That donkey, they say typically they'll mate like so many times, but him and Dolly were getting it on. It just blew even her mind. Like Dolly just kept on every day. She peeing and she doing all kinds of stuff, trying to tell him to mount her, even though she kick and even though she reject or what have you. He knew what to do or what have you, but he had to submit Blanche, the other donkey. So Blanche was a virgin. She was a female. She's an adult, but she was a virgin. So when they first brought him in and she saw him trying to mount her friend, she coming over there kicking him. It was funny. She kept kicking him. She would go over there and she even kicked her friend a couple of times, trying to kick him off of her friend. He had this one little episode, and I know this is weird, but he had this one little episode. She showed a video of him. He had bit down on Blanche's leg, and he was taking her in circles, running her in circles, just running her in circles. And she explained, she explained that what he was doing was submitting her, because Blanche is new, she's young, she doesn't understand hierarchy. What he was doing was submitting her so that she would stop kicking him whenever he went to Mount Dolly. He was also preparing her for whenever she went into heat. Now, Blanche happens to be in heat, and now they've been getting it on, or what have you. Why was I telling that story? But in every species of animal, the male mounts or humbles the female. Example, I use Mr. Hank the donkey with Blanche. Other positions are allowed, but the missionary position denotes submission and covering. That's what it's about: submission and covering. A woman can properly submit. A woman can only properly submit when she's covered. A woman can only properly submit when she's covered. You can be with a man. You can be married to a man that cannot properly cover you, because he's not. Christ is the head of man. He's not wearing his crown of Christ, right? He keeps taking it off. He keeps going into sin. So he can be improperly covered. And it makes it hard for the woman to submit, because when a man's not properly covered, demons come in, unclean spirits come in. When unclean spirits come in, there's a lot of chaos in the house. The demon will usurp his authority. Consequently, the woman will start to usurp, or she'll start to pick up authority, or what have you. But I'm saying that in every species of animals, you will see the male submitting the female. I'm trying to help you to understand hierarchy. I'm trying to help you to understand that when it comes down to marriage and all that other stuff, the husband is the head of the house. And if you want to have a healthy, godly sex life with your husband, you have to keep the order of God. If you don't keep the order of God, you can have intercourse, but typically it's going to involve whips and chains and bullet wounds and cigarette burns. It's going to involve a lot of stuff because you're going to have to build a Tower of Babel. You're going to have to build something, and it's going to have to be perverted or what have you. And anything that's perverted, Satan doesn't like legal stuff. Demons don't like legal stuff. So if you build something perverted, you can bet your by golly, wow, your husband or your wife is going to go outside the marriage. Your husband or your wife is going to go outside the marriage because they're going to keep looking for something in you that they can only get in Christ. And when they realize that, hey, I keep reaching this certain spot, but it seems like I can't go further than this, they'll typically look for that in somebody else. So you got to make sure that everything moves the way that God designed it to move. Number 9, selfish sex opens the door to unclean spirits. Selfish sex. This is, remember we talked about earlier, self-worship. Selfish sex. This is, and I'm talking about in the context of marriage. Anything outside of marriage is selfish. Anything outside of marriage is selfish. Because you're not exalting God above self, which makes it selfish, which makes it self-worship, which also makes it sin. Remember, self-worship is nothing but sin. But you can be selfish in marriage. You can be selfish in marriage. I gave the example of if you happen to be a male and you know that you blow your top in 4 minutes, it takes your wife 20 minutes to get there. You can be selfish, and that means that you keep having sex with her, but you're not having intimacy with her. And because you're not being intimate with your wife, then what can end up happening is you open a door to unclean spirits. You can open a door to her going and buying tools, going into the sex store because she's not satisfied with you, because you keep on being selfish. When it comes down to marriage, marriage was never designed for it to be selfish. Remember I said earlier, you can have sex with your wife, but at the same time, you want to make sure you have more intimate encounters with her than anything. The same thing is true for a woman. You want to make sure you're having plenty of intimate encounters with your husband, more than sex, because if not, women set the stage and the tone for sex. In other words, our body heats up, the body lubricates, and all that other stuff. If women don't get taken into that space, it affects how sex happens. So that's a mental thing. That's something that happens through the man taking the time, not necessarily saying what he needs to say, but foreplay for a woman, it's not what happens in the bedroom. It's what happens that week. It's what happened that day. That's foreplay for a woman. You take out the trash, that's foreplay for a woman. You go and you take her car to the car wash, or you go outside and you wash her car. That's foreplay for a woman. Believe it or not, when you get married, you start to understand how the mind of a woman works. If you are a woman and you are married, if you've been married before, you start to understand that your body responds to how you think about your man. Your body responds to how you think about your man. But selfish sex, whenever there's no intimacy, he didn't get to know you. He's not dwelling with you, and as according to knowledge, he didn't get to know you. And instead, everything becomes selfish. It opens the door to unclean spirits. It opens the door to unclean spirits of lust and perversion. It opens the door to unclean spirits. And these spirits oftentimes come through people. Those spirits oftentimes come through people. You say, Tiffany, what do you mean? It could be a coworker. It could be an ex that's in her inbox. It could be a neighbor. It could be a guy that she meet at the gym. Unclean spirits is not just somebody coming after the war. It's not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and the rulers of this dark world and spiritual wickedness in high places. When you start dealing with familiar spirits know what your woman wants. Familiar spirits know what your man wants, because it is possible for a woman to be selfish in sex. Let's just keep it real. But selfish sex opens the door to unclean spirits. It opens the door. Selfish, even for a woman to look at her husband and say, I got a headache. The Bible says you're giving place to the devil. So that you're supposed to give yourself to him so that he's not, or you're not tempted. The both of you are not tempted by the enemy. But selfishness, we'll say it that way, opens the door to unclean spirits. Selfishness in marriage opens the door to unclean spirits. And these unclean spirits are going to come through people. It could be that man on the job that sits back and brings your wife a sandwich or what have you. And she's sitting there, she's trying to be faithful, but you're too selfish. And then now she's dealing with a familiar spirit in that man. And that familiar spirit is giving that man insight as to what she happens to be missing. And he says, you sketching over there. That's really nice. Oh, just a little something I do. No, man, like for real. You ever thought about going, like you're already there, but you ever thought about going to school to further your, your artistry? Like what you're doing right here, you're just sketching. No, women are women are mesmerized by men who see them. Am I wrong, ladies? Let me know if I'm wrong. Women are mesmerized by men who see them because we're hidden. God hides us from our husband. When we get married, God keeps hiding us, right? And it takes that man to be in Christ, to be seeking the face of God for him to see. And so a lot of times with a woman, she is there and she's seen and unseen at the same time. She's physically seen, but she's not necessarily seen or heard. Women are mesmerized by men who see them. As a husband, you may get caught up in the things you've seen that you didn't like about her. You may get caught up in the things that you expect from her, but you're not seeking and you're not getting to know her, the person. You're not seeking the face of God. You're not getting revelation from God because you're not at the feet of God. And so a familiar spirit will come through another man and sit back and tell that man that pay attention to her artistry. Pay attention that whenever she winked that eye, she's not being honest. He says, would you like me to do you feel seen in your marriage? No, of course I do. He said, every time you're being dishonest, you wink that eye. That's a familiar spirit. That's not a good man. That's a familiar spirit. So this is the same with our relationship with God. The enemy comes in through our lack of revelation or knowledge of God. God gives us the space to pursue him. This space is, grace, right? Is the space to repent and the space to pursue. God gives us space to pursue him. Whatever in that space right there, there should be friction. There should be you chasing God. That space can become a void if you don't bring God in it. If you don't seek God. If you seek him, you'll find him. If it can become a void. A void represents darkness, and Satan is the prince of the power of darkness. So Satan will have legality or legal right over that area of your life. Satan will have a legal right over that area of your life. So there has to be, when it comes down to relationships, it doesn't matter if it's a friend, doesn't matter who it is, there has to be a measure of seek. If there is not a measure of seek, if you get too comfortable with your husband, if you get too comfortable with your wife, you get too familiar with the person and you don't continue to seek them, you're not going to know when they're evolving and you're not going to know their needs. And so consequently, you may go into the bedroom, to my brothers in Christ, to their wife and give her what you were giving her in 1995, not knowing that that's outdated sex, not knowing that she ain't into that anymore. She's older. And so her body ain't doing all that contorting. And you sitting there thinking you laying down because she's screaming, but she's screaming because she's in pain. But at the same time, women have a tendency not want to say anything to the guy because of fear of him cheating. Fear that some other female can take it. Fear that some other female will sit back and like it. And so, well, if this is what he wants, this is what I said, I'm going to do a sex ed course. I promise I'm going to do that course. I'm going to do a sex ed course and I want to teach on that. But because of fear, women have a tendency to shut up. Women have a tendency to be quiet. Selfish sex open the door for unclean spirits. They often come through other people. Again, it could be that coworker on a job that sits back, sees her drawings, sees her little quirks, sees all of those things and what have you. Then she come home to you and she's just sketching the drawing. And you look over and you like, she take it out the thing and she's just admiring it. And you call yourself trying to clean up and you ball it up. Why'd you ball that up? It was trash. You see that? It was trash. Why? And you may not know that your marriage is under attack. You may not know that the enemy is trying to usher in a spirit because there's a divide between the two of you. God gave her space to grow, and that space is what we call the reconcilable differences. If you don't heal, if you don't pursue, and you're not praying, you're not seeking the face of God, and you're not trying to constantly keep knowing your wife, that space, what you're supposed to do is keep pursuing. And in your pursuit, you're also leading. In your pursuit, you're also leading. And so that space, she can end up being married to you and feeling alone. This can be happening in reverse as well, but she can end up married to you, but feeling alone feeling like she's not seen, feeling like she's not heard, and then the enemy will throw somebody at her. Number 10, when you engage in sexual activity with a person, that person's demons then become your demons or a part of your demonic army. When you engage in sexual activity with a person, that person's demons then become your demons or a part of your demonic army. Remember, I taught on this. Demons are not omnipresent. They cannot be in all places at once. If you sit around and you are you're messing around with Jerome. Whatever demons Jerome picked up, Jerome been out here, he done slept with 74 women in his life. That means all 74 women, all of their demons got access to Jerome. Jerome is an incredibly demonized man, but he's good looking, he's smart, and he doesn't seem like he's crazy. And you turn around and you sleep with Jerome. Jerome's demons and all those other females' demons, all of them become a part of your army, your demonic army. So you end up with a bunch of unclean spirits, right? Sexually transmitted demons. You end up having, there's a lot of unclean spirits that end up having access to you because of that. Not to mention his demons, because let's not forget the folks you slept with. And I'm going to say this. If you're still having sex outside of marriage, every person you've ever slept with, their demons still have access to you because, and that's if you're still doing it, because you haven't truly repented. Repent doesn't mean to apologize. It means to change your ways. So the way that you cut a demon off is through repentance. James 4:7 says it this way: submit yourself to God, resist the devil, resist temptation, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's a form of deliverance. I'm saying your ex's name. When you engage in sexual activity with a person, that person's demons then become your demons. Remember, we talked about the concept of a house and a hotel. That demons are not omnipresent, meaning that Jerome may be the house. And then he have a lot of them that belong to other people that are coming to visit him whenever they want to. This is why he having drive-by sex dreams. He's having all kinds of stuff. So he's a house. He has his own demons that he inherited, his own demons that he picked up. But there are other demons that got access to him that get access to you through you sleeping with him. Yeah, even with rape and incest, demons still get access to you. It's not always that you repent in cases like that. Sometimes you repent if you put yourself in a predicament. And I'm talking about with the great thing, but you still have to go through deliverance in many cases because those spirits still get access to you through that. I know that because I was assaulted when I was 10 years old, and I immediately started having dreams of this light-skinned guy covered in freckles and stuff. He was a demon. I immediately started having dreams of this dude. He was covered in freckles, and he was on the other side of a fence, and the fence stretched to the far west, to the east, and all the way up to the heaven. I remember there was no way for him to get to me or me to get to him, but I just felt this connection with him. But that was an unclean spirit, and that fence represented a standard. When you engage in sexual activity with a person, that person's demons then become your demons or a part of your demonic army. So if you think your life was bad before you slept with them, it gets worse. If you think your finances look bad before you got with them, your finances can go worse. If you think that your health looked bad before you got with them, your health can get worse. You remember, fornication is a sin against one's own body. Number 11, spirit spouses can and do enter people through sex. If you don't know what a spirit spouse is, it is a demon that claims you as a spouse. It will marry you in the realm of the spirit. It claims you as a spouse. It can cause infertility, barrenness. Typically, the signs of it is dreams of you marrying a faceless person, having intercourse with a faceless person, or sometimes you'll dream that you're having intercourse with an ex or somebody that is a spirit spouse. Spirit spouses can also be symbolic of somebody trying to do a love spell on you. When people try to employ love spells, you can end up having dreams of that person or what have you. But that is usually the sign that the person is trying to do a love spell. But spirit spouses can and do enter through sex. They enter through witchcraft. They're typically in a bloodline. A large number, I would hate to say this, but I think the majority of women suffer with spirit spouses, especially Black women. I think it's in America in totality. The reason I say Black women is because our ancestors played with witchcraft. And so this is why you find fibroids, not hemorrhoids, but you find fibroids is more predominant with Black women and stuff like that. Like reproductive issues are typically the result of spirit spouses. They're typically the result of spirit spouses. Spirit spouses can and do enter through sex. They can and do enter through sex. Number 12, you are not free from your demons. No, sorry. You are not free from your ex's demons unless you have truly repented and underwent some form of deliverance. I'm going to move from that one. Because we just got to talking about that. Welcome, Sister Deanna. God bless you. You are not free from your ex's demons unless you have truly repented and underwent some form of deliverance. This is how you get free. You can't sit back. And I've had people, and I've talked about this before. I've had people to reach out to me and say, Tiffany, can you pray to break this soul tie? But they haven't repented. In other words, they're saying, I don't like the law of sowing and reaping. I don't have the authority or the right to disregard or to annihilate the law of sowing and reaping. You will reap what you sow. And so if you picked up a soul tie, if you picked up demons, if you picked up some stuff because of what you sown, that stuff has a legal right to you until you repent. I can't cast it out if you want it. You can't sit back and still want to have the sex and do the things that are wrong, but then you just don't want the stuff that came with Troy. You don't want to keep dealing with the stuff that came with Tyrone. You don't want to keep dealing with the stuff that came with Jerome. You don't want to keep dealing with the stuff that came with Jason. But you still want the ping, but you don't want the demons. You don't get to choose that. You don't get to choose that. You don't get to say, how do I hold on to the ping and not get rid of the demons at the same time? So you're not free from your ex's demons. Some of you are still dealing with demons from your exes from 20 years ago. That's because you have not repented. But you're not free from your ex's demons unless you have truly repented and underwent some form of deliverance. Now, not always saying that you need to have a deliverance medicine. In some cases, you do. Remember, we talked about James 4:7 as a form of deliverance. Submit yourself to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So if you sit back and say, you know what, I'm presenting my body to God, I'm no longer going to involve myself in sexual activity, and you have an understanding of it, and you come into agreement with God, the spirit of perversion can get cast out of your life by you just simply doing that, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to go and somebody got to lay hands on you, somebody got to speak over you. Sometimes some forms of deliverance come through obedience. Let me say this, not just obedience, but understanding and obedience. But if you don't necessarily have that, you can still get deliverance by going to a deliverance minister. Going to a deliverance minister and getting that stuff cast out. Number 13, and we got 15 of them, so we're almost done. Number 13, sex allows demons to gain a deeper measure of knowledge regarding you. Like you are literally giving the enemy intel about you. Sex allows demons to gain a deeper measure of knowledge regarding you. This is what opens the door for the spirit of obsession. I don't know if y'all ever dealt with that before, but good God, I did. This is what opens the door for the spirit of obsession. Obsession is a demonic spirit that serves as a soul tie connecting two souls or two bodies together until death do you part. Within a death do you part, or an agreement between death and obsession and you. It creates this agreement between death and obsession and yourself, and the spirit of premature death. So let me explain it this way. I have stories from stuff when I was in the world, right? I dealt with obsession when I was 17. That was the only time I can remember dealing with obsession with a guy. That was a horrible feeling. Woo, worst thing in the world. But I have plenty of stories where I had exes that dealt with obsession as related to me. And it brought a great deal of trauma in my life, because I got to the point where I was just like, and it wasn't always sexual, because I think one of the craziest stalkers I had, I never even kissed that dude. One of the craziest stalkers I've ever had, nothing ever happened between us, but he still stalked me, right? So obsession is not always sexual, even though you have a higher probability of somebody obsessing over you. And just to give you a little bit of revelation, a little bit of insight, women have a tendency to think that they want a man to obsess over them, because you don't want to be left, you don't want to be discarded, you don't want to be disregarded. So you feel like you want him to be obsessed over you. So women will put forth their best foot. Women will cook, women will seduce, women will try to learn all that different crazy stuff they can bring into the bedroom. Women will try to, wow your mother and your father. Women will try anything. They'll try to impress your children in their own personal attempts to bring you into that space of thinking that you can't live without them. But can I tell you something? What in the world was that? Sorry. Oh, okay, I see. Y'all, I'm going to record him. Okay, he left. There was a squirrel in my back door. Talk about stalkers. There's a squirrel. My back door is glass. And there's a squirrel on my back door looking in through the windows, looking in through the blinds and what have you. I was about to record him. But what was I talking about? You think women have a tendency to think they want a man to obsess over them. I used to think like that. And in the beginning parts of it, see, the end of sin is death. Satan is always, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants to kill you. He wants to use you, and he wants to discard you. The average woman, for whatever reason, thinks that, hey, because this is what media promotes, we have a tendency to think that I want his nose to be wide open. I want him to be sitting up just looking at me, because if I can't get him to love me, sometimes we think that that is love. It's not love. But if I can't get him to love me, I want him to feel like, you're my breath. You're my everything. How can I breathe without you? That is the quickest way to find yourself on a headstone. That is the quickest way to find yourself, because you got to remember, first and foremost, the man is stronger than you emotionally and physically. That's why God gave him the role of the house, head of the household. God made the man stronger than the woman. God is strong. I mean, the man is stronger than you. Women have a tendency to think, I want to put it on him in such a way. And women, let's just be honest. Can we talk? We are kind of discerning as it relates to men. I couldn't do that to him. He too present. I don't know how to say it. It's not Jezebelic. In all our honesty, it's flesh. It's flesh. It can turn Jezebelic, but it's flesh. Young women do it all the time. Most young women, when they first come in their feminine wiles, they play with them. They play with them. They have fun with their feminine wiles, because it's fun to watch a man salivate. It's fun to watch a man. Okay, I was trying to do a message about this the other night, and I started thinking about an old movie, like 20 something years old, Best Man, right? The Best Man. Now there's a third part out. I immediately watched it while taking my hair down, and anywho, it was funny. It was funny. Wasn't necessarily something we should watch as believers, but it was funny. But I was watching. I thought about the Best Man, the first one, and you remember the guy on there? I don't remember what his name was, but I think his name was Jordan. Was it Jordan? Anyhow, he was dating Shelby. No, Jezebel, the desire for control is the fallen human desire. Jezebel, yes, has a desire for control. That's when they start pursuing it. That's when they start becoming the dominant thing. But he was dating a guy named Shelby. I mean, a woman named Shelby. I don't remember what his name was, on what his character name was. Anyhow, he was pursuing a woman named Shelby. I mean, he was in a relationship. Shelby controlled him, dominated him. They end up having this bachelor party for his friend, and then these strippers come in. And then the girl, the song Candy's on, the girl started dancing, and he's mesmerized. He's caught up, and everybody's laughing at him, even though he's a little bit drunk. Everybody's laughing at him or what have you. Women, for whatever reason, whenever a woman watches that, it seduces her to want to learn how to dance. It seduces her to want to get into that kind of stuff, because women love putting man in that predicament, in that position. Most women. I'm going to put it out there. Y'all going to get quiet on me, but I'm going to tell the truth. Most women, which is why we invest in that kind of stuff, right? Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with lingerie. Nothing wrong with any of that. But I'm saying most women love it when they have a man salivating after them. They love that moment of, he's at my mercy. He's at my mercy. Where was I? Women want men to obsess over them. I'm saying that to say, and that's usually an immature trait. When you get older, you get wiser, you start realizing, I don't want somebody obsessed. I want somebody to love me genuinely. So true love, it looks, because obsession is one of the forms. So there are different forms of love, right? There are different dimensions of love. Obsession is a perverted form of one of those forms of love, right? So everything that God creates, the enemy perverts. The enemy has a perverted form of it. But what the enemy does is he creates things like obsession. Whenever it comes to obsession, we have a tendency to want that, not realizing, because we think that that's going to make the man love us. We think that that's going to make the man want us. We think that that's going to make the man sit back and brag about us or what have you. We think that's going to secure him. We think that that's going to keep him from cheating. That's going to keep him from leaving. That's a lie from the pit of hell. Obsession does the actual opposite. It creates an appetite in a man that you don't have the ability to feel. It creates an appetite in a man that you don't have an ability to satisfy. It creates an appetite in a man that makes him want to come around you more, makes him want to be with you more, but not get to know you, but more so want to entertain the fantasy that he has, want to entertain. Now, there are two types of, and we got one more after this, so no worries, but there are two types of obsessions that you'll typically see that a man can experience. One is sexual obsession. Sexual obsession is when a man can't stop thinking about sleeping with you. Whether he's had intercourse with you or not, he can't stop thinking about it. Every time he sees you, and this is what men typically have for strippers. And so if you have an exotic dancer, we'll say that. If a man goes, you'll have a bunch of men. I gave this example before. They go to a strip, they'll go to a bar, right? Where there are women that are, exotic dancers. A bunch of men go into the bar. Then you'll typically have that dude up in there, peewee, shorter than the rest of them, a little skinnier than the rest of them, got the little chipped tooth and maybe a cut across the eye, what have you. Example I gave on another video before. The other guys, they have a measure of understanding. This is not wife material. This is just fun. This is just this. I still want to sleep with her, but that's that. Which, let me just be honest with you. I'm going to say this before I go a little bit further. It's nasty. I'm going to call it what it is. It is nasty for you to want to plug a woman that's being plugged by other men. That's nasty. That's as nasty for you want to be plugged by a man that's plugging other women. That's just nasty. It is nasty for all these bodies to be coming together. You pulling out of one woman and wanting to go to another one. That is just clear nasty. For me, I can honestly say, and I'm going to get back into it, I've always found it disgusting. A man that will sit back and try to go after a married woman or go after a woman that's in a relationship. That is nasty. To go after somebody that is walking around, because I don't know if you understand that when women are married, they're typically, in many cases, carrying around their husband's semen. Sorry. Many cases, they're carrying it around because they're having intercourse with their husband. He's releasing. It don't all come out at one time. So women go to work wearing liners and stuff like that because their body is constantly. So that is nasty for you to want to use another man's expellence, what he's expelled, as your lube. That's nasty. Sorry. That's nasty. That is absolutely nasty. I could not respect a man if I'm a married woman that's trying to get with me. He nasty. That tells me that he has no self-control. That tells me that he's out there, telling who he's sleeping with, what he's sleeping with. That tells me he doesn't know intimacy. He don't know God. All he knows is the up and down movements of sex. He's a perv. He's probably going to. He doesn't mind putting his face in drink. Sorry, let me get what another man left behind. Got the audacity to be mad when he hears about homosexuality. I'm a man, I don't sleep with women. You just slept with a woman who slept with a man, and you using what he left behind. You eating what he left behind. That's it. Maybe it's just me, but that's nasty. But what obsession, getting back to the topic, what obsession does is obsession. We talked about there are two types. There's the sexual one, right? Sexual obsession is typically where a man, his thoughts don't go outside the bedroom. Someone like Pee-wee in the strip club, he can start dealing with sexual obsession. And he thinks that if I'm with this woman, that's standing up on the stage dancing. He gets caught up in his fantasies. Other guys up there with their money, they got wands. They just throwing them, throwing their wands at her. Pee Wee sit there. He got like 400 wands in his hand. These guys, they trying to spread it out between women. Pee Wee sees that one woman, and he gets caught up in fantasy, and he thinks that she could become his world. He thinks that, man, if I was with her, like this will be my everyday. He doesn't think about eating, sleeping, drinking, or anything like not napping. All he thinks about is the smell he's smelling, which is the oils that they're using. All he thinks about sensuality. He's caught up in that moment of sensuality. He thinks about being in the house with her. So while the other guys are sitting up there like, hey, you look at Pee Wee. Pee Wee's like, and what exotic dancers do when they see that, they will go straight to Pee Wee because they know they can get more money out of Pee Wee because Pee Wee's in a trance. Pee Wee's in a trance. In other words, Pee Wee's under the spell of witchcraft. Pee Wee's in a trance. Pee Wee is sober, not too much sober. He's present to an extent, but Pee Wee's in a trance. The other guys are not that in a trance. So she knows if I go over there, they're gonna throw about $3 on me. They're gonna throw about $10 on me. Maybe they'll make it rain $20 on me. I go over there to Pee Wee. Pee Wee got 400 wands in his hands. Pee Wee gonna take them 400 wands and do this right here. He gonna give me the whole stack. He gonna give me the whole stack. Pee Wee is the one, because he's dealing with, now that's sexual obsession. Pee Wee is the one that from that point on, security gonna have to watch him. Because he'll come to the club, he'll use all of his child support money, his lunch money, his rent, he'll use his car note money, he'll use everything. He'll steal money, he'll do whatever to keep on coming there to finance Strawberry. Remember, we talked about that in other videos some years ago. Yeah, I think the stripper named Strawberry, but he gonna call her Strawberry. And he gonna call her Strawberry. He gonna be up there, Strawberry. And so he gonna come up there, he'll be giving her all his money. And he'll look at how she looks at him. Even for her, she's just doing the job, trying to get the money. For him, he thinks we're having a magical connection. He thinks we're connecting. He thinks we're connecting. And so because we're connecting, we got a special connection outside of other people up in here. Pee Wee is likely to follow her home. Pee Wee is likely to try to force a relationship on her because of obsession. And Pee Wee is likely to take her life whenever he realizes he's being rejected. Because then he feels like he was played like a fool. He feels like he was played like a fiddle. So that's one form of obsession. The second form of obsession is relational obsession. That's when somebody obsesses over being a part of your life. They obsess, and women typically have this obsession, but men can have it as well. Someone obsesses over, they have obsessive thoughts of being in a relationship with you, being married to you, having children with you, but they don't know you. So their fantasy is limited to what they think they know about you and what they need you to be in accordance with whoever it is that left them. Whether it was a mother, whether it was an ex, whether it was somebody that they just really never had. Whatever voids that they have, they will imagine that woman being the solution, or that man, but we're just using the woman for an example. They will imagine that woman being the solution to every issue that they've ever had. Like the world completely, whenever you're dealing with obsession, the world stops. Whenever you're dealing with obsession, the person thinks about you in the house rocking a baby. That's it. You rocking a baby, you looking at him, y'all getting caught up in just love making. You don't think about bills. You don't think about arguments. And if you do think about argument, you think it's going to end in love making. This is what makes the obsessor so dangerous, because they did not prepare. Before you build a thing, count the cost. They did not prepare for all of the unseen things. They only saw fancy. They only saw an unrealistic version of you, the version of you that their void created, the version of you that the demons created in their mind. That's all they see. And they can become obsessed with that person. Now, Satan knows that person doesn't exist in you, but an obsessor is more likely to be an abuser, because they feel like the part of you they see in their head is your potential. And the person that you're presenting yourself to be, is keeping them away from the person they need you to be. So they'll beat the person that you are, trying to get to the person that they're trying to turn you into. Did that make sense? We want number 13. Sex allows demons to gain a deeper measure of knowledge regarding you. So they'll know how to play that man's mind or know how to play that woman's mind. This is what opens the door for the spirit of obsession. You can become obsessed with them or they become obsessed with you, sometimes both. And there are different levels of obsession, but obsession is always akin to murder. Obsession never comes without murder. It never comes without murder. You can be married to somebody and that person is obsessed with you. You can be married to somebody and that person not even like you, don't love you, but it's obsessed with you, obsessed with, what you do for them. They could be obsessed with you, and the minute you try to get away, they'll take your life, or they'll try to take your life. That's obsession. I'm trying to help you to understand that ungodly sex, anything that you do outside the will of God, opens the door, gives that devil a right to enter into your life. And you may think you want it in the beginning, because somebody who obsesses over you is super duper charming in the beginning. They buy you gifts. They sit back, they snot up at the nose, and they say, man, what you doing to me, man? I can't stop thinking about you, man. Man, I mean, you were on my mind all yesterday, man. I was hanging out with my boys. I had to tell them I had to leave, man. Like, what you doing to me? So somebody who's obsessed with you can give you eye contact, that they can be incredibly intimate like. But at the end of it, what they're dealing with is obsession. What they're dealing with is not a knowledge of you. So it's not real intimacy. It's not a knowledge of you. It's a knowledge of who they need you to be. It's these fantasies of what they feel like they need in you, and that's what they start to obsess over. And that's what opens the door for the abuse. Number 14, premarital sex and promiscuity destroys future marriages and creates delay. We almost done. We got one more after this. Premature sex, or not premature, but premarital, which is premature sex when you really think about it. But premarital sex will destroy your marriage. Okay. Remember, we talked about you need intimacy in marriage in order for marriage to last. If you're out here having premarital sex with people, you create memory in your body. Your body starts to have a certain thing that it likes. It starts to have certain positions, certain different movements, or what have you. In other words, you get acclimated to other people. By the time you get into a relationship and you get married, you won't understand intimacy. You won't understand sex. Consequently, your partner, let's say your partner understands intimacy or understands sex, they won't be too happy with you in the bedroom, because in the bedroom, they will find that you are, Sister Rochelle, thank you. God bless you. God bless you, beautiful. In the bedroom, they will find that you are selfish. In the bedroom, they'll find that you're doing all the stuff that you like to do, but you're not doing anything that they necessarily like. Or if you're doing what they like, you're doing it with a certain level of aggression or lack thereof. So consequently, what you're doing is you're doing to Tamika, your wife, what you did to Tanya, your ex. So you out here taking all of the history that you have from all these different people, and you end up being whack in the bedroom. You end up being whack in the bedroom and you don't know it. I've talked about this before because I've counseled women as it relates to sex. I've had brothers, y'all gotta hear me. I've talked to women and who sat back and said, hey, my husband is whack. Our sex life is ridiculous. And my first question to them, have you communicated with him? Oh no, you didn't know how these men is. You can't tell them nothing. And I'm like, that's the problem. You didn't open your mouth and say anything. You didn't sit back and ask him, brother, what was that? Who taught you how to do that? Tamika did. The ex did. All the women from his past, all of those experiences. And these were a lot of times, a lot of women who either didn't communicate or women that were relatively loose. Sorry. Women that were relatively loose. Meaning, and if somebody named Tamika here, just forgive me, I'm just using names. Tamika was loose because she was promiscuous. So Tamika couldn't really experience any type of pleasure anymore because it was hard for her. So she felt like she needed pain. because Tamika used to sleep with dudes that were built like horses. So now Tamika, the walls of Jericho fell. Now Tamika needs somebody to pull her hair and to bite her and to do all kinds of crazy stuff to her. So he was messing with Tamika. He couldn't satisfy Tamika. So what he had to do is he had to scratch her, he had to claw her, he had to burn her with cigarettes, he had to kick her down a flight of steps. He had to do a lot of crazy stuff to Tamika in order for Tamika to feel anything. By the time he gets married to his wife, he's rough. By the time he gets married to his wife, he's rough. He still think that that's sexy because when he got away from Tamika, he did that to the next woman. The next woman liked him a lot, so she didn't say nothing, and so he interpreted her screaming as her liking it. He interpreted her screaming as her liking it. He like, yeah, you like that. So for him, nobody ever told him that what he does in the bedroom, it ain't even standard. It's stupid. Nobody ever told him that he was whack. So for him, he's gone years sleeping with women who were too afraid, because most women are too afraid to communicate. He gone years with women. You like that? You like that? And y'all out here talking about something. Yeah. How you got kids with somebody you ain't even enjoy? Where y'all at? Y'all know y'all up in here. You messed around, was having sex with somebody, you got kids with them, you never experienced. Okay. Make it make sense. You're not communicating. But premarital sex and promiscuity destroys future marriages. So by the time he gets married, it's hard for his wife to communicate because he thinks he's satisfied the other women. That's a demonic attack. By the time he gets married, he thinks that he was doing his thing with the other women. So the wife is having to deal with him being a rough chihuahua, going 100 miles per hour, being rough, selfish, or what have you, and he think he's doing something. He pinning her leg all over the place. The woman is in pain. The woman is just sitting there and she's just like, ooh, how long before it's over with? How long before he done? Then he got the audacity to say round 2. Round what? Go. Anybody selling tranquilizers? What was I talking about? It's destroyed it. The stuff that he did before he got married destroyed his marriage. The stuff he did before he got married. Same thing to the ladies. Because a lot of you, because of your history and because of what you see on TV, you think you got to be a freak. Did I got some lip gloss over here? I did. I don't think I put lip gloss over here. Nope, I moved it. You still think that you got to be a freak. So because you think that you got to be a freak, you over there, you get married and you doing all kinds of stuff to your husband, flipping him over places, throwing the mattress on top of him, cutting him with paper, giving him paper cuts on the butt and all this other stuff. And you think that he gonna be like, you think, because this is a lie from the pit of hell. You think that you're gonna call his boy, or he gonna call his boy and say, man, she put it on me, man, this girl, oh, I gotta go, man, she coming, oh my gosh, she coming again. You watch that on TV. You gotta understand that Satan puts on television what he wants you to believe because he knows that destroys marriage. Not realizing that when you start doing all that to a man, the first question that he has is, where did you learn that? Where did you learn all that? That tells him, for a man, experience is not for a wife. For a freak, he don't mind. But for a wife, somebody that he's expected to give trust to, you being like extra is not interpreted as you being good in the bedroom because you didn't learn that from him. It's typically interpreted as, who you been? Which is why your pillow talk sounds like, tell me about the last two you were with. Tell me about this. He want to constantly, because he's trying to figure out who put all those moves on you. He's trying to figure it out. And for men, on average, men typically don't necessarily want somebody else that other men have rejected. It destroys marriages. I'm telling you, all of these thoughts that you have about, I remember somebody said this a long time ago. I've seen this, I don't know if it was TikTok or wherever I saw it. They said grandma and granddad didn't get divorced. Grandma didn't have no lingerie. She just had that old flowery gown that touched her knees, and she went to bed. Grandma was a virgin, right? Typically, it's only in modern day because of what you see on TV that you think that you need to go into the bedroom with a fork and a skillet and knock your husband clean out and do some crazy stuff to his body because you think that if I'm a bigger freak than last girl, then he's going to be satisfied and he will never cheat on me. Lies. Comparison, competition does not belong in the bedroom. Knowledge does. Understanding does. Intimacy has everything to do with knowledge. Intimacy is you knowing him and him knowing you. And one thing about it is in your single season, God desires to purge you of all of those other relationships. He desires to purge you, but you can't do that unless you repent. And until you give your body over to him, you present your body, you let him take your body into custody. I present my body to live in sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is my reasonable service. He can purge you of those experiences. That doesn't mean that he can make them go away. It is to say that he'll clear the cache of your mind. That way, when you get married, you're not going up in there talking about some, I got something for you. He looking like, why you got a branding iron? And why is that thing smoking? And you sitting up there and you about to do some stuff to him, and he just sitting there looking like, because you did that to another dude and he liked it. You did that to somebody who was in captivity, somebody who was bound, somebody who was broken, and he liked it. He liked when you got a branding iron and branded your name on him. He's sitting there screaming and crying because it was a broken little boy in him. He's sitting there screaming and crying and sitting up there, and then he got obsessed. And now you think that your husband want that. You think your husband want that, and your husband is like, dang, where all this came from? Not to say you can't be sexually adventurous, not to say you can't enjoy yourself in sex. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm simply saying that when you're doing all of that stuff, God wants to clear the cache so you can get to know each other. It shouldn't be that I'm up in a bedroom with a man that I'm married to and I'm having to constantly say, okay, baby, it's like third day of the honeymoon, and while I enjoy you, can I ask you a question? When you go like 875 miles, you be done in 1.5 minutes. Like, what are you rushing for? What's happening? What? And he's, oh, you ain't like that? Who? I ain't have time to like it. It went by so fast. I blinked and you were done. So what was that about? No, you gotta be able to communicate that. But God wants to clear it, even to the men. You gotta hear me, because men typically, I always say this to my brothers in Christ. A lot of times it's hard for you to dwell with your wife as according to knowledge, because you never got cleared, you never got cleaned up from the last female, because you never really truly repented. A lot of times men don't repent. They don't repent for fornication. They don't repent for that. They just jump into another marriage. And then you bring in all of that history on that woman. And then when you got two people bringing in history together, you end up with this really whack sex life, or a sex life that is bent out of shape on perversion. But there is little to no intimacy. Intimacy typically, how do I say this? Intimacy makes you effortlessly reach heights of sexual pleasure and satisfaction that a dildo, a rose, a cigar burn couldn't help you guys. You can go get out, you can go get the clutches of death. But intimacy, you can, if you are intimate with a person, it doesn't require all of that effort. Remember, all the other stuff represents the law of works, but this is the law of grace. Intimacy helps you to go to heights with another person because you know them. And God has given you revelation because y'all are in his will. Because you sought to know them all the more. You ask questions, y'all communicated. Intimacy will allow you to go to heights with another person that you couldn't go to big booty Betty when you were with her, even though she served 4 years in the pen and she had a prison guard that she used to throw up against the wall. Big booty Betty know how to do some stuff, right? She know what she know how to put her leg behind her head. She know how to sit back, and she know how to to snap your neck during sex. I'm talking about get your lines, get your spine all straightened up and what have you. She ought to get you right. Big booty Betty know how to do some stuff to you. But at the end of it, can you just be honest to say the encounter, while it was different, was not Betty, was not bigger. It was not better than the encounter you had with another female. Y'all start being intimate. Y'all start being honest about sex. It'll change you. It wasn't better. You just bragging about it. You brag about it to your boys because it was different, but it wasn't better. You had more fun with we'll call her Tiny. You have not Tiny, because I know some of y'all probably got a nickname Tiny. We're gonna stick with Tiny. You had more fun with Tiny, even though she wasn't all that experience and it wasn't all those positions or what have you. Y'all probably was stuck in missionary. You had more fun with Tiny than you had with Big Booty Shirley. But you won't sit back, right? Chiropractic sex. But you won't sit back and be honest about it because it's different. Because Big Booty Shirley did some stuff to you that ain't nobody did to you. She sat up there, she got your spine back in alignment. She sat up there, she had you face down on the bed. She put you in moves that you ain't never seen before. But let's just be honest, because you got to be honest with yourself. It wasn't better. Because there was no knowledge there. She came to you and she did to you what she had been doing to other men. She came to you and did what she'd been doing to other men because she's broken and she thinks she need all that. But Tiny, on the other hand, don't think she need all that. Tiny, on the other hand, felt like she just needed you to understand her and to love her. That's it. Which is why you had a better encounter with Tiny. You couldn't even tell me I'm lying. You couldn't tell me I'm lying. You had a better encounter with Tiny, even though not much happened in the bedroom. But you won't brag on Tiny because you respect her. Men brag on women they don't respect. Y'all be wanting, a man will typically hide a woman that he doesn't want his boys going after. Because he know when he go telling Jerome them about Big Booty Betty, they gonna try to hit her too. They gonna try to hit her too. Because he told him, man, I'm telling you, that girl came in the bedroom and she had a scarf and she was holding that scarf like this. I said, what you about to do with that scarf? Man, she took that scarf and wrapped it around my legs and I don't know how she did. It was like a cowboy thing. She tied it to the bed. It's just different. He will tell his friends about Big Booty Betty because Big Booty Betty is not somebody he respects. He will be quiet about Tiny because he respects her. You hit Tiny? Yeah, man. Yeah. But he's not gonna go into too much detail about Tiny because Tiny to him is more of a respectable woman. How was that? Man, shut up, man. Get out of my business. Oh, y'all know what I'm talking about. You're starting to identify whether or not you were respected or not. True respect, true wholehearted respect comes in the context of marriage, and not just any marriage. I'm talking about a God instituted, God approved marriage. Let's go ahead and move on to the last one. Number 15. Women, and we talked about this, so we won't stay on this long. Women represent instruments of worship. Women represent instruments of worship. If mismanaged or abused, they will create an unpleasant sound. If mismanaged, you have to understand that a woman screaming in pain is not a pleasant sound. A woman screaming in pain is not a pleasant sound. There are sounds that are pleasant and there are sounds that are unpleasant. But if you don't know the difference, you will sit back and you will be a master of self-worship. Like you'll take care of yourself, right? You'll take care of yourself. But at the end of it, you will close the heavens, if you get what I mean, as it relates to that woman. You'll close the heavens as it relates to that woman. Because in your mind, you think you're doing something. In your mind, you think, but no, that's the sound that closes the heavens. That's the sound. Can I say this? I'm going to say this out loud. Unless she needs therapy or she needs some type of medical assistance, most women, if you're truly intimate with them, I'm talking about truly, and I'm talking about, context of marriage, doing things the right way, will want to have sex with you more than once a week, more than twice a week. Many times they will pursue you sexually. Ladies, y'all quiet. Y'all better tell you. There guys up in here. Get your husband ready. They will want to continue. If it gets to a point where a woman is sitting there talking about something, I'm tired, it's because you give her more sex than you give her intimacy. You give her more sex than you give her intimacy. And women don't always communicate that, which is why I said I was going to do a sex ed class. Because one of the things I want to do, I want to make sure that men are educated, but I want to make sure that women know how to communicate. I want to make sure that women know how to communicate, how to open your mouth and say, hey, that's not good, because you end up having a better encounter with your guy when you communicate, because then your body responds more favorably, which causes you to enjoy and also causes him to enjoy you all the more. Women represent instruments of worship. You got to pay attention to the sound. Women represent instruments of worship. If mismanaged or abused, they will create an unpleasant sound. Ouch. They will create an unpleasant sound. If a woman creates an unpleasant sound, then 9 times out of 10, the windows of heaven, as it relates to her, are going to close, which means that the flow will be cut off. You're going to end up having dry sex with the girl. She will also remember that when you're coming over there trying to touch her again, because she don't want to go through that. You feel like a fibroid because you're doing things to her that she's not, because you're not dwelling with her as according to knowledge, meaning you didn't take the time out to get to know her body. You keep doing to her what you did to Big Booty Betty. You keep doing to her what you did to another female. So consequently, she don't want you. Consequently, she's sitting there and she's like, I hope this man don't touch me tonight. But he looking frisky. That's the worst thing. A woman should never be in that headspace. A woman should be looking like, are you standing up over there? I'm just about to cook. Put that spatula down and go to the bedroom. Baby, what? Go. Because in that case, she's saying, you know my body, and I know something good's going to happen up in there. It ain't going to be you telling me to go into this position and I'm in pain and I'm sitting there counting the pumps trying to figure out, okay, or listening for the sound to sit back and say, okay, he sound like he almost done. Y'all know what come on. You're not praying. You don't want your woman sitting there waiting on, looking for a specific sound that you can make that lets her know that, okay, he almost done. He almost done, because good. He starts squealing when he almost done. He starts shaking when he almost done. Good. This is almost over. You do not want that. Sex was not designed for fornication, but it wasn't designed to just be sex. It was designed to be intimacy. It wasn't designed to only continue whenever the both of you were aroused. It involves foreplay and afterplay. That means that it continues. Even once you have reached a height, it continues. You continue to speak to each other's minds. You continue to speak to each other's hearts. That's what intimacy is. You continue to speak life into each other, to encourage each other. This is why pillow talk is so powerful, because a lot of times, if you're not broken, right? Because pillow talk becomes broken talk if you are soul tied to another person, and that dude kind of picks it up, and now he asks you questions in the bedroom. So tell me about that guy you dated. You know, the guy you were telling me about. You're like, oh, Pee Wee. Yeah, I met him when I was dancing. Pee Wee. So what was it? I mean, Pee was, and he waiting to look, and he notices that smile, and he says, okay, that's what she's still attached to. He said, I bet Pee Wee do it like that. Pee Wee, no, that ain't what you want your pillow talk to sound like. You want your pillow talk, you talk about life, you talk about the past, you talk about things, but pillow talk and foreplay is more so designed to just grow closer together. It's more so designed for y'all to sit there and talk to each other and not at each other. For you to sit back and get to know each other, to grow closer, to become more one. To become more one. So hear me when I say this. When it comes down to sex, sex is for the body. That's something you do with the wife or with the husband when you get married, but you can also do it outside of marriage, and it makes it illegal. And it's just all about sex. It's selfish. It's all about, it's 30-fold. It's about self-satisfaction. Intimacy, it has everything to do with knowledge. And God doesn't give you knowledge when you're outside of his will. Sister Kayla, thank you. God bless you. A woman can give you knowledge of her. She can give you a measure of knowledge. She can tell you things about her that she knows, but most women don't know themselves. I'm telling you, most men don't know themselves. They only have the revelation that they've gotten for the season that they're in, but they have no idea who they are in Christ. They have no idea where they're going. They have no idea everything that they like and dislike. They kind of learn through trial and error. But God will give you revelation. God will give you understanding. That's intimacy. And then a third fold, which is hundredfold, that belongs to God and God only. That's worship. You don't worship a woman. That's where you start getting an obsession. You don't worship a man. Right? You have to be taught properly. You have to be taught properly. Women have to be taught. Women have to be taught to communicate. Women have to be taught to stop thinking that they have to be freaks. You have to understand that when you go into a bedroom in the context of marriage, a husband and wife, it should not be coming into the bedroom thinking about satisfying the arousal. It should be coming into the bedroom thinking about, I love this person and what have you. And we are about to enjoy each other's company. There's nobody else present. And we get to, just enjoy each other and get to know each other's bodies all the more. And we get to know each other mind all the more. We get to know each other on different levels all the more. That's what it's all about. When you go into the bedroom with that type of mindset, the world will say, oh man, your sex sound boring. Your friends will tell you that lie, but they know it ain't. Which is why, to the guys, your friends will try to get with your woman if they broken. If they're broken, your friends will try to get with your woman. They'll say that because they're out there sleeping with all them different women, and they got ropes, chains, ties, and whips, and none of those things. They're still not having a better encounter. It's just different. They just have a different thing that a person doing to them, and it ends in the same level of orgasm. It ends the same way, or what have you. So the only thing they can brag about is that, hey, she did this to me, she did that to me, but it wasn't better. You, on the other hand, whenever you have intimacy, you guard it because you don't want nobody to know. Like, you don't want nobody coming after what's yours because you're like, man, what I just experienced, I ain't never experienced before. And it makes you want to guard that. It makes you want to protect that. It makes you want to shield that. I remember my former pastor said it this way. He said, when a man respects a woman, he won't be touching her butt in public and feeling on her in public. Do with that as you please. Because when he respects his woman, when a man really likes you, he's not filling you up because he's not trying to show other people. Like, to him, he wants to guard you. A man is a protector by nature. He wants to protect what's his. So he's careful about how he treats you in public. In the house, he may be slapping you on the butt or what have you, but in public, no. When a man truly, truly loves his wife, he's married, he doesn't treat her like a sexual object in front of other people because that's intimacy. That's intimacy. Anywho, I pray that you guys were blessed by this. I may likely do a part two. Like I said, I'm on vacation this week. I'm on vacation this week and next week. So I may not come on here. I don't know. I'm trying to take time out to rest because I realized last week it was time. I was falling asleep everywhere. I would sit down on my couch and just doze off, and I wouldn't even go to the first level. I felt like I would go straight into REM sleep. And I felt the Lord impressing it upon my heart to take, some time off to rest or what have you. So, but again, I hadn't taught on Sunday. Wanted to come out and teach on today. I pray that you guys were blessed by this. And guys, listen, one of the ladies that helped me, she did this broken out t-shirt. This is amazing. I'm going to make some more of these. I'm super excited. Like I said, the film was a huge success. I can't wait to release it on film or, through streaming platforms and what have you, so I can let you guys see it as well. Thank you for those of you who came out and support. Thank you for those of you who tuned in. I pray that you were blessed by this lesson. Share it with somebody that you know. Share it with somebody that you love. I can tell you the knowledge of this will help definitely to the guys. It will help it will help to the guys. It helped with the women as well. But share it with somebody you know, because a lot of people don't necessarily understand what happens in the bedroom. They don't understand how to navigate that space. So consequently, there are so many unsatisfied people out there in the bedroom. They're doing the stuff, they're making babies, but they can't even stand each other. What have you. So that's that. Anywho, I love you. I'll talk to you soon.